Here. Crazy day. Welcome, everybody. This is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. Today's Thursday, June 19th. We are 160 days into the new year, and as always, we are live from the JP Motorsports Studios right here in sunny, roasting, hot, sweaty Burbank, California. For KJCR and the Dark Matter Radio Network, I'm your host, Jimmy Church, and I would like to welcome everybody listening around the world, all across the United States, this great country of ours. A big salute to the proud men and women in uniform, possibly going into harm's way again. Without them, there is no me, there is no you, there is no us, and you need to think about that. Got that weekly letter this week. Dude, what are you doing? Saluting the imperialistic army. Come on, man. Without them, you couldn't write me that letter. And you need to really, really, really think about that. Without them, there'd be no YouTube. Or Twitter. Oh, man. All right. Let's go. I got to say right now, out of the gate, digging that tweet deck. Had everybody assisting me today. Emails, text, Keith calling in. But we got it. It's up and running. And I got to say, Jack Dorsey, you the man. I just tweeted Jack and said, you need to call into the show. It's been a long time. So we'll see. You never know. Little surprise call from Jack Dorsey. All right. Let's get this one cracking. You ready? I'm ready. Buckle up. Buckle up. Today, singer Ann Wilson of Heart turned 64 years old. And I don't have an Ann Wilson story. Wish I did. I got a weird Heart story, but that's for another time. Roger Fisher. Cool dude. Lives up there in Seattle. All right. We've got, it's going to be a crazy show. It's going to be a busy show. And so let's just get through the normal stuff. Get it out of the way. All right. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Just heard me talking about TweetDeck. Man, that just makes my life so easy right there. Just blink, 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 automatic. I've got two feeds going on. Okay, I've got the notifications feed, which is direct to me at JChurchRadio. So if you want to do something direct and you don't want anybody else to see it, I guess that's how you do it, at JChurchRadio. You want to hang out with everybody else, it is hashtag DMRadioNet. Hashtag DMRadioNet. We've got our normal crowd that hangs out at that hashtag. So if you want to go hang out and ask questions and share thoughts with everybody else during the show, that's a really great place to do it. I watch it during the show. Try not to read too much of it. But, you know, every night we fly through probably 300-400 tweets and growing. We're trying to manage it and trying to get this done the best way that we can. And all of this was done by you. Okay? TweetDeck, the hash, all of that is done by you. And you guys tried to figure out a solution for it. And I watched all of the communication going down between everybody over the last week. And you all know who you are. Okay? And it was, it's so cool. It is. It's so humbling for me that you care. And it's really cool. It's all lit up. So that is to my left. And with the addition of TweetDeck, I went out today and got another monitor, another big monitor. And I can't believe it. And it's kind of spoiled me now. Now I want another one. I want another big one. It's kind of funny. Everything was kind of fine. And now I don't have space. And I have less there. It's just really cool. It's just... So anyway, all right. So that's that. Facebook, YouTube, Facebook. The fan page is jimmychurchradio.com. Easy enough to find. You can go and click. All of the links to do everything are on our website, jimmychurchradio.com. Also over at Dark Matter Radio, darkmatterradio.net. You're on the face or the Fade to Black page. You know what to do. Just scroll up. All the links are right there. Tonight, got a special show. Okay, this is a show that I've been wanting to do for a long time. We're going to open up the phone lines all night. And I have got, and there's reasons for that, and we'll get to that in a second. I have got a stack of DVDs here that I'll be giving away. Everybody that calls in till they run out. But I do have a genuine, when I say stack, I mean a stack. And let's see here. I've got Don Ecker, Paul Stonehill, Preston Dennett, got a Preston Dennett, Don Schmidt, Michael Cremo, big stack of really cool MUFON DVDs here. So we'll be giving those away throughout the show. Now, we are going to open up the phone lines at around 8 o'clock. And I'm sure somebody's going to try to call in before then. I will have Bill Birnes on the show tonight. Special guest, friend of the show, great guy. Consider him a brother. He's great. He will be on at 7:30 from the East Coast at the bottom of the hour. All right? We will be discussing tonight, all night, with you, the Huffington Post article that was published today over at the Huffington Post. And it is written by Lee Spiegel. Good job. Written about the Malibu deep underwater base that Maxwell, Dale Romero, his son Jason. Jason's name didn't get into the article. But Jason, you know what you've done for this. And, well, I'm saying it now publicly. There you go. All right. Jason Romero. So anyway, we'll be discussing that article all night. If you have not read the article, you can go over to jimmychurchradio.com right now. Scroll down. It's right there. You can't miss it. Big red letters. And the Huffington Post article. It's just a link. Click over. Go read the article during the show tonight. Read it now. Take you 5 minutes. Blast through it. A lot of information there. And call in. Tell us what you think. That's it. I want to know. I want to know how everybody feels about how mass media is dealing with a very touchy, sensitive subject like this. And in my opinion, articles like this come along every 25 years. Something like this, something that's this breaking and this, this interesting and the possibilities of it. And not since Bob Lazar. There hasn't been anything since Bob until now. Well, you can call Rendlesham Forest, something like that. But then again, that was 1980. So you're looking at, like I said, every 25 years, something like this comes along that's this big. And how will mainstream media, the MSM, the mainstream media deal with a subject like this? Lee Spiegel did about as good a job as you can with editors and everything else. And so I need everybody to go check out the article. Call in. Let me know what you think. All right? And that's what the show is going to be about tonight. So I left this evening, and everybody was asking, where's the guest tonight? Where's the guest? I knew the article was coming out, and I left tonight open. I reached out to Bill Birnes because, Bill, there isn't anybody out there probably more media savvy than Bill Birnes. And he has reviewed the article, hasn't given me his opinions or anything like that. That's not the point. The point is, this is a big deal. This article is a big deal. And I thank the Huffington Post for considering it and writing and handling it like they have. Very sensitive. Very sensitive. So we'll be spending a lot of time on this tonight. And that's the deal there. Okay. The link, like I said, just go over to jimmychurchradio.com, scroll down, you'll see it. It's right there. It's at the top or right below all the other, the contact in the desert. I think it's falling right below that. Okay, so you guys know the number, 323-825-5045. We'll have Bill at the bottom of the hour. And with that, let's move on. That's what the show's about tonight. It's going to be great. It's going to be fun. And looking forward to everybody's participation. This is Bespoke Radio for the masses. And never, never forget that. The show's for you. Contact in the Desert, also at jimmychurchradio.com. Go, click, and enter. The banner is there. While you're spending some time over at jimmychurchradio.com and you're clicking on the Huffington Post article, please, if you haven't entered, take the time to go and enter the contest. Click on the banner, and that'll take you over to the Fade to Black page. It's right there. It's easy to do. Just register, enter the contest. It's a 4-day full pass, $400 pass to Contact in the Desert. Come hang out with all of us. We are a sponsor of that event. We will be broadcasting live Friday nights, 7 to 10, from Joshua Tree, from Contact in the Desert. And all of the winners, all of you guys, everybody that wins, that comes on out and hangs out, you're going to come on this show with me. And you just don't know who is going to be with us that night on the show. So everybody that you've looked up to, maybe wanted to talk to or admired or not, and you just wanted to get rough and go, why? That's your chance. Come hang out. You just don't know who's going to be with us on the air that night. And, okay, so that's that. Let's see. Yeah, it's going to be Tellinger, Tsoukalos, Von Doniken. That guy from Coast to Coast is going to be there. And it's going to be really, really, really good. Nick Pope. Yeah, it's going to be great. Richard Dolan. All right. The winners from last week were Rick Sinnott, Brad Beining, Arturo Portillo, Shakira Bluesun, and Walter Lewis. And we'll be announcing the next round of 5 tomorrow night right here at Fade to Black. It's going to be great. All right. So with that, I've got a bunch of email. I'll wait to do that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I got to get out of the way here at the front of the show. No. When I come back, I'm going to take a quick break. When I come back, we will bang through a ton of email after last night's show. That was a great show last night. Truth Seeker, man, I had a great time. And I hope he's listening right now. That was an absolute amazing show last night. This is Fade to Black, Bespoke Radio for the masses on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is the Thursday edition. All right, everybody, you ready? I'm ready. Let's get this one cracking. I'll be back right after this. Do not touch that mouse. Back right after this.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I got to tell you, it was a relief. National Tax Experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. It doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil 3-letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444, or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com
On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Oh, yeah. All right, let's go. Fade to black. Yeah. That was a cool show last night. Dizzy Reed calling in. Guns N' Roses. That was all right. Hadn't talked to him in a while. All right. Truth Seeker. You know, it's kind of cool. One of the things with this show that is that I think is a really cool way to approach things is, you know, I come from the entertainment industry. I come hardcore from the music side of things. And I know, you know, so many entertainers and actors and directors and all that stuff. And they all have opinions on what we talk about on the show every night. And so bringing in those, you know, that element and getting their opinions on things, sure, we can bring in all the authors and guys that have been researching for years. And I enjoy that, too. That is awesome. But bringing in stuff like you know, Dan Fogler, you know, we had Graham Bonnet on the show and you know, and you know, last night with Dizzy. We'll get Doug in here, too. Doug has been out in Las Vegas, Doug Aldrich, doing his show out there 5 days a week. So during the show, 5 days a week, 7 to 10, he's on stage. So, but on one of his days off, that he's here in L.A. or out there in Las Vegas, he said that he'd be more than happy to come on the show. And he's got some stuff to talk about. But that's one of the things that's really cool. And tomorrow night, Craig coming on the show, Campo Basso. That's going to be awesome. Another director. And, you know, it's just another view. And it just lets you know that you don't have to be a researcher, you know, to not only have an opinion, but for you to listen to that is just like you, that is not from the inside. They're from the outside. And that's one of the cool things about this show. We will always try to push for that angle. To that end, Dan Aykroyd, man, whoa, been trying to get this guy, and I finally got to the inside. So hopefully, we'll have Dan on next week, and that is another example. It's going to be really cool. All right, let me get to a bunch of email that has come in since the show last night. This one from Victor. Just watched your video of the underwater base off Malibu. Decided to have a look for myself. It was there, so I zoomed in the blurred doorway until I was underwater. The icon for the street view popped up. I dragged Pegman to the doorway. It was black. Then I zoomed. Here is the panoramic view from right to left. Let me know what you think about coincidence. Thanks. He says, he goes on to say, new to this stuff. I'm not able to send pics from my phone, but they're coming. So we're waiting for those. But I just thought, wow, that's really cool. So we're waiting for that to come in, and that is from Victor. I tried to replicate what Victor did. It's tough, man. You know, I don't know what Dale and Jason and how they get the stuff done. I can't. I wish I had their software. Another email from Renee. She says, I just loved eavesdropping on your on-air conversation with Dizzy Reed. Yeah, that was pretty cool because it was just a conversation between friends, and that was pretty fun. Don't get to do that often. So, with witchcraft and teleportation now checked off the list, you've now covered on Fade to Black every single esoteric topic of importance in only 80 programs so far. And you've introduced us to younger truth seekers like Truth Seeker. And it gives me hope for our collective future as a fully conscious species. Couldn't agree with you more, Renee, and that's why your email got read. You're absolutely right. That's what we're trying to do here. Fresh. It's the fresh, prudent show. It's fresh, man. This email came in from Walter. Truth Seeker is very well spoken on the subject. Demons, devils, voices in the night, evil influence that subtly works to push off the track towards darkness. What if the archons were the source of everything dark in the night since the dawn of time? Religions created as a way to resist, a way to generate the positive energy needed to fight them. And that is a great email. That's what I expect from you guys. You need to be on par right there with Walter. You need to sling that. And the thing is, when presenting Truth Seeker to the world like that, this is a guy that went way dark, way dark, and we all have dark thoughts from time to time. Well, he pursued it and lived it, and came back to become the young man that he is today. And and for him to be able to talk about it on those levels, and he went and researched and invested and did everything he could to find out why he went there, and he wants to share that. That is, he's an incredible young man, and his music is absolutely amazing. He doesn't play around, and that was a great show last night. Okay, let's see, from Ben Miller. This came in a few minutes ago. And when I say that, I think it came in 2 minutes before the show. He says, thanks for posting the HuffPost article on the Malibu structure. As usual, the science guys who should be anxious to investigate this potential unnatural object are fast to write this off as erosion. You and your group are the real scientists for wanting to do actual look-see with remote cameras. Maybe it is erosion, but it looks so different from the other nearby eroded undersea land. I cannot wait to get some real data on this site. And that's exactly right. I couldn't agree with that. That's it. That's great prose right there. That's good typing. Yeah, the site to me, I've had. Oh, by the way, I just got to say this really quick, just so everybody knows that I am very, very, very aware of what's going on with the literally thousands of views of the video that we posted on that. With editing that goes on here, there are certain files that are saved inside of our video editing programs, and I'm talking about graphics. And inserting into the master file with everything that is around it, with all the graphics, that's all that ever really occurs. And we thought, so we don't actually go and watch a 3-hour video. We don't do that. It would take 3 hours, and there isn't that much time. And so anyway, the word subscribe in all of our videos up until about a week ago or 2 weeks ago said, I think, subscribe. It didn't have the S in there. And this has been going on, and I know everybody out there is listening going, yeah, man, we saw it. And most of you that know me just laughed about it because it's just stupid. But it had been out there. And we thought here that had been fixed many times. And for some reason, it kept reloading into the master file. With that program, it was fixed once or twice on a couple of videos, and we thought we were done with it, and then boom, it popped back in. Now with the Malibu base video, it popped back up, and we didn't check it, and that's my fault. I'm the boss. I'm the guy that anything goes wrong, it's my mistake. No matter who does it, it's all on my shoulders. I should have checked it out. I didn't do it. I thought it was right. And everybody posting on YouTube and sending me emails, dude, lost all my credibility when you couldn't spell subscribe. Can't spell it all. So there you go, man. I'm putting it out there. It's not that big of a deal, but I'm not going to pull the video down just to go fix that word. And if somebody's got problems with that, then whatever. It happened, man. No big deal. And if you looked at other videos, you'd see that it is right. It's just one of those things. It's an anomaly like the deep underwater base. We don't know what's going on. Oh, man. All right. See, I got Ben Miller out of the way. Keep the guest requests coming tomorrow night, Craig. Campobasso, who's going to be here tomorrow night, that came from you. So think about that. And that came in a long time ago. We had to chase him down and get him in. Tomorrow night's going to be great. He has got a new movie coming out that is at the Burbank Film Festival. It is called Stranger at the Pentagon. You should go check it out. We'll have everything up for it tomorrow night. They're working on the final edits of the film, but I think we have a trailer up, and the movie poster and stuff is out. What it is about, well, you know what? I'll save it for Craig tomorrow night. But think Eisenhower and aliens locked in a room. That's what this is about. Almost documentary-ish, and it's really good. So anyway, Craig, tomorrow night came in from you guys. So always send me guest requests. And pretty much, I don't reveal who the guests are. Okay, don't do it. We're locked up and we're booked up through the end of August right now. We've got a couple of open dates, but we're booked up. And I go and I look at that, and this is what happens. You send me a guest request. Usually I know who that guest is. But I immediately, if they're cool, they're worth it and worthy, I'll do it right there, or the producers here. We will immediately contact that guest and get them booked. That's how it happens. So if you ever wonder, man, Jimmy's got it all locked down this week. This is really cool. That's how it happens. It happens from you. Okay? We've done 80 shows. 80 great guests. 70 of them, 60 came from you. And don't ever forget that. This is bespoke radio for the masses. All right. I'm looking, man, I'm the tweet deck. It's almost kind of strange. It's just blink, 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 blink. And you guys are looking at the same blinks I am. It is just blazing by. You guys need to slow down a little bit so I can actually read these. Then I have to go back and I've got to scroll backwards, 80 tweets. Wow. But everybody's in tonight. During the break, I'll take a quick glance through. When I come back, man, we've got a great week lined up next week too, by the way. When I come back, it will be Bill Birnes in the house. Don't forget that. You know what? Tonight, should we do on this break, you know what I'm going to do? Let's listen to a little Truth Seeker after Doug. This is Fade to Black. Yeah. Thursday nights on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, at JChurch Radio. Hashtag DM RadioNet. Jimmy at JimmyChurchRadio.com. You know what to do. I'll be back right after this. Stay with us, everybody.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Dark Matter.
Dark Matter. Dark Matter. Dark Matter. Dark Matter.
You're listening to Fade to Black
on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carzan, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Lock in my hand and some scrolls that I'm holding. A mystical experience just like Joe Rogan. I'm chilling with Ethereans and a light that is golden. They say they are the Syrians with love and devotion. Sparring with the devil, I'ma put them in a chokehold. Fighting with the devil, we gon' battle in the dojo. Raising my vibration through Kundalini yoga. Building on my chi, I feel it rise like a cobra. Sitting in a posture that's shaped like a lotus. Clearing out my mind cause my mental is focused. My eye is single, pineal is open. Herbs and spices, incense smoking. Concentrated breath in my lungs I'm holding. 3-part breathing, the energy is flowing. Sitting in the silence, the now and the knowing. I'm thinking about my karma, my reaping and sowing. I'm speaking to my father, I'm praying for my homies. Reflecting on my memories, reflecting on my journey.
All right, welcome back, Fade to Black. Man, I gotta say, man, Truth Seeker. If you listen to those lyrics in that song, he has dropped every paranormal subject known to man. Good stuff. Truth Seeker. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We are on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Thursday nights. It's going to be a great show tonight. We've got open lines, 323-825-5045. You can also Skype in Fade to Black 14. You can get all those instructions if you need to over at jimmychurchradio.com. All right. Let's get this one cracking. I've got him on the line right now. Let's bring it down, bring it down, bring it down, bring it down, bring it down. Bill Birnes is with us. Hey, Bill, can I bring you in without a 20-minute bio? Just bring you in live. How you doing, Bill? Everything good?
I'm good.
Always good to hear your voice, my friend. Always good to hear your voice. And thank you for coming on. And we tonight, I'm just going to drag you through tonight and ask you to hang and take some calls. I don't know if you're listening to the show, but I've got a big stack of MUFON DVDs, courtesy of Steve Murillo and the good folks over there. We'll be giving away tonight to the callers. And, it's going to be an interesting show. And so, if you can you hang with us for a while? I know you're on the East Coast. Okay.
Yeah.
I tweeted out and posted right before the show, and you'll find this interesting. I said, okay, we're going to have Bill Birnes on tonight. We're going to talk about the Huffington Post article. It's all good. We're going to have fun. And then we're going to talk about 50 other subjects in rapid-fire Bill Birnes fashion. And Lord knows where it's going to go. But,
we don't know. We don't know.
We never do, and it's always great fun. Thank you for coming in.
Sure.
Now, again, for everybody out there, the Huffington Post article is out, written by Lee Spiegel. The link for it, so you know, and you can reference what we'll be talking about all night, is the link is over at jimmychurchradio.com. So you can just go over there right now and click on it. It'll take you over to Huffington Post, and it'll take you straight to the article. You can blast through it. And I know, Bill, I know that you read it today. I've read it a couple of times. And so let's just get into this. And the first thing is this. Now that this article is out, and it's a good article, it's well written, and I do want to thank the Huffington Post for crossing a subject that is very sensitive. And I'd said,
but look where they put it.
Well, let's get to that too in a second. Well, you know what? That's where they put that kind of stuff, and I understand that, but you never know. It could get elevated and switch pages. And but before we get to that, now tomorrow, after Huffington Post, now everything else is going to start to crank out there. We will be talking that we're going to do a CNN thing tomorrow and a couple of other mainstream things, and it will be interesting to see how everybody else in mainstream media picks up on this from Huffington Post, how they treat it, and how things, now move forward in the news cycle.
Spoiler alert. If you think the Huffington Post was snarky about this, you don't know what's going to happen to places like CNN and places like that.
You can't control it, can you? You can't.
Well, it's not even that. CNN, MSNBC, to a larger extent, Fox News, but certainly the three major news networks, all adhere to a kind of unspoken but understood among the group standard. And that standard is a window of acceptability. It's a framework where certain stories get an open-minded treatment and certain stories get rejected. Stan Friedman, my good friend Stan Friedman, has a thesis that in terms of how the media, and this is in direct, I wonder how CNN's going to treat this. I've been on Larry King a few times. I know how he treated it. But there's a window of acceptability. And one of the things that Stanton mentioned was that the media and skeptics, diehard debunking skeptics, will adhere to the principle of anything but alien, ABA. And that's exactly what's at the bottom of this article. I mean, so in one respect, everybody agrees. You agree, I agree, Stanton agrees, they agrees that there is a far too facile and quick reliance on UFOs to explain the unexplainable, even though that's exactly what the unidentified U means. But that is very facile. And that's exactly the point the article makes. At least this person, West, at the end of it, saying, he makes the perfect division. Yes, I think that UFOs are real. He doesn't believe in UFOs. He says, I think they're real. I think there's a reality to them, etc. And then goes through some of the arguments of why he thinks they're real. And then he says, but in this particular case, there is geology to show that there is a conventional cause for it. A, always look for the conventional cause. Then, B, we too quickly rely on UFOs. Now, when we did the show before, when we were talking before about this was not, this is definitely a UFO base and they're here to conquer the world. Didn't say that. What the point is, what is it? What does it look like? Does it look perfectly natural? No, it looks totally artificial. And that's exactly that there's an agreement. It is perceived to be, because it looks that way, artificial. Doesn't mean we know that it's artificial. Just looks man-made to me. I mean, I look at it and I say, boy, that really looks man-made. That's a little too symmetrical. I understand the geology that they're talking about, but it's too localized for me. And then, yes, it is in the continental shelf. These are the Google Earth photos. Yes, this is into the continental shelf. Yes, this is 2,000 feet deep. The one statement in the Huffington Post that nothing could drill down there, that's not totally true. What if you didn't start drilling down there? What if you started drilling someplace else and exited there? So, I mean, that is, and yes, it's 2,000 square feet, and let's say you had a rig and everything else. Yeah, there is a technology to do that. In fact, the technology to do that is so old that it dates back to the 1950s.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's right behind that and all the way up and down the coast, as you know, there's oil rigs all over the place where they're drilling much deeper than that. I mean, I know you're not referring to, jumping down there with a Makita, a lithium battery drill that you buy at Home Depot. No, certainly not. But there's deep sea drilling that's done every single day. And you're right. And we've been laying cable across the Atlantic Ocean since we don't know when. It's not that big of a deal to go deep.
Right. We have the technology to do that now. Is that a UFO base? Are there UFOs in there? Are we jumping to that thing? No. One of the things that I suggested, and we both agreed that that's a possibility, is that it certainly could be ours, that there is a labyrinth of tunnels underneath, at least underneath the western part of the United States.
Let me ask you this. The article itself is, I want everybody else's opinion. My opinion is not really worth anything because I'm just a guy that is involved with the article. But my opinion is whatever. But when you're writing an article like that, or not dealing with this kind of subject, and you mentioned this earlier, when you're in journalism, and I've taken journalism, there are certain things that they don't teach you in school. You have to find out once you're a boot on the ground and you're out there and you're doing your reporting and you're uncovering stories, no matter what, and then you take that story back to the newsroom and you try to push it through and get it done and get it on the air or get it in print. That's the way it works. But how filtered is stuff done after that? You've written, New York Times bestselling books. Stuff is filtered. I mean, as far as the media is concerned, there is a sluice gate. Certain things get through. Certain things are demeaned. Certain things just don't even get mentioned. And that's why when you hear on some of the news shows, wow, we've just discovered this. How come nobody's picked up on this? Well, the fact is there are things that you don't pick up on either. In some cases, because you don't know. In some cases, you do know and choose not to pick up. Right.
So, I mean, that has certainly been my experience with the media. I mean, in the Dr. Feelgood book that I wrote with Rick Lertzman, our book was picked up by all the conservative right-wing media. They loved it. I mean, and that actually, when I think about it, it's funny. Yes, this is definitely a commercial book. I put a lot of scandal in there, sex, things like that, all in there. But if there was an intellectual conceit, kind of an academic conceit behind it, at least from my perspective, then it's the story of a drug. And yet, because it dealt with President Kennedy's drug addiction, and because it speculated on how that drug addiction caused a cascade effect in Kennedy's life and exacerbated personality predilections he already had, like womanizing. I mean, Jackie even talks about that in her letters to the Irish priest. But it was this larger issue, to me at least, of how a drug that a doctor injects into himself has the power to corrupt. This is not magical thinking. This is biological thinking. Has the power to corrupt that doctor into a state of hypergrandiosity and want to give that drug to the world and use that drug ultimately as a means of controlling other people. Wound up controlling John F. Kennedy and Jackie, but using it to control other people. But in that process of that drug's migration, creating a colony of users around this Dr. Feelgood, Max Jacobson, in so doing, it made him, when he crossed Richard Nixon, it made him the lightning rod and really the focus for the war on drugs. So there's all this legitimate history, policy stuff in there, but there were two things. One, you're talking about President Kennedy's drug addiction. That's been a no-no. That's been a no-no in the press ever since the 1960s.
And Jackie O is off limits, too.
Right, and Jackie O is off limits. And, in fact, the whole Kennedy family is off the limits.
Absolutely.
It's just off limits,
Yep.
okay? Like the Skakill cousin kid wasn't off limits because he was charged with the crime, but really off limits. So that's on the one hand. On the other hand, because I did UFO Hunters and UFO Files and all those other shows for a lot of years, then that's another thing. Oh, how can a book, even if there is some legitimacy to that, be written by the person who is, I know that guy from the sunglasses and baseball hat. So on the one hand, so there were two strikes against it. But the other books I've done that have really been pure books on psychiatry and criminology, the early books before UFO Hunters are still selling. I mean, I have books literally 20 years old that are still selling, even though the information is, partially out of date. But the newer ones, especially the two newer ones from this past year, really it's the same thing with the media. Even though they purport to address the very problems you will hear on an MSNBC or a CNN in the evenings, you don't see them breaking through the surface tension. So I know that there are a whole bunch, to answer your question specifically, yes, there are a whole bunch of filters in the media. I mean, even things like independent book reviewers, for example, the New York Times will pick a certain reviewer for a certain book in cases where the person knows of that person's relationship with the author.
You had mentioned the Overton window.
Yeah, there is this window of acceptability, this framework of what the media can carry as a news story. This was a project, I think it's out in Michigan. It was called the Overton Project, and that framework is called the Overton window, but it was the Overton Project, and it's a study, really is almost like a sociological study, a sociological policy study of what kinds of stories make it into the mainstream. So war gets in there. Crime gets in there. If it bleeds, it leads. But if it hovers and we cover, that only lasted for a little bit of time. And then it's when the story breaks into the media by a whole other way. And I'm thinking of the 2008 O'Hare Airport story.
Okay.
2007, 2008. The
Right.
O'Hare Airport story, where the very, very John Hilkovich, the very, very mainstream, not a UFO guy, not a UFO nut, the very mainstream John Hilkovich, who was the travel reporter in Chicago. I think it's for the Tribune or the Sun-Times. I don't know. But he's the travel reporter. And so he got a story, and he's a travel reporter now. He got a story from the ground crew at the United Terminal at O'Hare that there was a strange object. Nobody called it a flying saucer. A strange object posing a collision alert over United Terminal C.
C-17, right? Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It was Gate 17. But the point of this whole thing was they had to report this. This is not, some guy walking his dog seeing lights in the sky. They had to report this as a matter of their job. They were the ground safety crew. And the guy who first spotted it and didn't go running to the media with the story, the guy who first spotted it was driving the tractor, moving the jet to a maintenance hangar. So he's moving it by the little tractor you see at airports, towing the jets. In order to do that, he must look through the cockpit windows at the pilots. Why? They have to have their hands off the controls.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
In looking through the window, their window, he sees this object. He places a cell phone call, a communication to the pilots. Do you see that? They do. That is picked up on the radios. That's how the story begins to gain some traction. The ground control tower hears that story. I interviewed the guy in the tower, picks up that story, and it issues a collision warning for all the planes around this terminal. It issues this warning. We have a UFO that people are spotting. It doesn't mean flying saucer. But the FAA Deep Six is the whole story. This is by that February. The FAA Deep Six is the whole story. But little beknownst to the FAA, all these things are taped by United Airlines because they have an independent investigation of ground safety incidents. So the tapes are all preserved. So the ground crew go to the FAA, they get no response. They go to United, and they have copies of all the emails and drawings of this thing. What it did, how it did it, that's secondary to this. So the FAA denies. So John Hilkovich gets these complaints from these people saying we had an object over the gate, and the FAA did not. He calls the FAA. They say, oh, no, we don't have any tapes. They lie to John Hilkovich, the reporter. Then John Hilkovich says, well, I'm going to do a FOIA request, and you really can't withhold them unless you invoke national security. Suddenly, the emails and messages, radio messages, appear. And indeed, the FAA knew all about this thing. They were tracking the entire story. So the story may or may not be about what the object was.
Right.
But the story is what happened to suppress the news of the object.
Exactly.
And the bigger story is why John Hilkovich reported in the newspaper how it got through the Overton window of acceptability.
Right.
Was that it had to do with travel safety, not a UFO.
Interesting.
And because it had to do, but because he mentioned a UFO in the article, the Chicago website got millions of hits. I interviewed the reporter too. They got, for the magazine, they got millions of hits. So it led to this joke in the UFO community, if it hovers, we cover, because suddenly everybody wanted to do a UFO story about this because it was getting so much traction, which shows the underlying interest. But officially, the story was Deep Six by the FAA. And, of course, it's now old news. But that's an example of how the Overton window works.
So we should have just reported on a 600-foot pillar. What's the interest?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
If you were a news reporter, first of all, you're not breaking news.
Right.
You're saying, here's what I got, and look at these pictures, and here's what I got, putting them up on the website. What do you think? Think out of the box. That's really what we're talking about. We're not talking about we're a pair of geologists discussing this object in the display as on an academic basis.
Let's take a. I've got 3 or 4 calls holding right now. Let's take one really quick. Hello, where are you calling from? What's your name?
Oh, this is Brad. I'm calling from Ohio. Brad, buying contest winner.
Oh, hey, Brad. How are you, man?
I'm doing good. How you guys doing this evening?
Absolutely great. Brad is one of our winners to Contact in the Desert. And
good for you, Brad.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Brad, congratulations. And now you're coming out, right? You're coming to the show?
Oh man, I can't wait. I'm so excited. It's a big deal for me, man. It's had kind of a rough last year or so, and this is just going to set everything straight.
Well, you love the desert, I can tell you that.
Wait.
Yeah, Brad, it's going to be a wonderful time, and looking forward to meeting you. And so you're online right now with Bill Birnes. Now, Brad, you've won a contest to tickets to Contact in the Desert. Now it looks like I'm gonna give you a DVD tonight. All right, so I'll let you take first crack. You got Don Ecker, Paul Stonehill, Preston Dennett. Let me see what else we got here. We got Don Schmidt, Michael Cremo. I've got a few of each. Which one do you want?
I definitely want that Cremo for sure.
You want Cremo? That'd be my choice too. That's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool dude.
All right, there it is. There's your DVD. I'm handing it off to the producers. There you go. We'll get that in the mail to you. Do me a favor. And just send Rita your address, and we'll look for the email, and we'll get that out to you. Okay, so do you have a question for Bill or comments on the article?
Yeah, I just wanted to call in and let you know how cool this is. I mean, this Malibu base has just, to me, it's a huge, huge breath of fresh air, I think. Because, I don't have a whole lot of friends that are, into ufology or anything. And you try to talk to them, and like, oh, you mean Area 51 UFO? And it's the only time anything's been seen,
Right.
And people who aren't into this are hearing about it, and it's so cool because it's kind of pushing it out there a little bit, it's kind of giving a new breath, and people are getting into it, man. And it's just great. It's just a really cool thing. And this show is just awesome. I mean, you guys, it's just, you're doing a fantastic job. I can't say no.
Hey, Brad, thank you. Thank you for the kind words. I've got calls backed up. You're the man. Yeah. Write Rita right now and send Rita your address, and we'll get that out to you. And I'll talk to you tomorrow night, man.
Cool, Jimmy.
Thank you, Brad. All the best, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, bye.
Michael Anderson is on the line. Michael, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How you gentlemen doing this evening?
Hey, well, you're talking to the man himself.
Yeah, I listened to him, and I think it's his wife's show. I've listened to them a few times too. It's an excellent show.
Thank you.
I like that guy Angel. He's a good mix to have.
Yeah, Angel is a riot, isn't he?
Yeah.
He seems to sometimes ground everybody.
Yeah. He does. He's like the Jiminy Cricket who lets you know when you're stepping off the line.
Yeah, he's a perfect match. My question tonight is kind of for both of you. But Bill, what do you think about James Randi, and what's your opinion about what he does kind of for or against the weird, paranormal, anything non-traditional?
Okay, so first, in a shameless self-plug, I direct you to a book that I wrote with Joe Martin that came out last year called The Haunting of the 21st Century, which documents in meticulous detail the confrontations between James Randi and Uri Geller, and where Joe Martin was in the middle of all this, and how a lot of this, you'll love this, how a lot of this was pushed along by the man who invented Velcro. His name was Webster, and he's
What's the name of that book again, sir?
It's The Haunting of the 21st Century. I wrote it with Joe Martin, and the whole first chapter answers your question exactly, but in short order. During a lawsuit between James Randi and Uri Geller. This was after, this tells the story of James Randi faking something on the Johnny Carson show to show up Uri Geller. And but Joel talks about the fact that this one person, his name was Ben Webster, He was the guy who literally invented Velcro. He was a Scot, and it was how the thistles stuck. And he financed a private investigation of James Randi. Now, I'm not going to go into on the radio on Jimmy's show and go through all the charges, but there was, and here's the bombshell for you. There were allegations made by the private investigator as to James Randi's contacts with law enforcement agencies. Okay, let's just put it that way. And so the speculation was that somehow Randi was being used as a debunker by the powers that be. And lest you think the government does not stoop to that, I'm sure you're aware of a report called the Condon Report out of the University of Colorado, which essentially, no matter what the contributors to the Condon Report wrote, Dean Condon wrote this scathing introduction, which basically said, look, we can't prove there are UFOs here, and even if we could, they're not a threat to national security, so we shouldn't investigate him anywhere. Goodbye. Nothing to see here. Go home. And then we found a letter that the Air Force wrote to Edward Condon telling him straight up, we need to get out of this Project Blue Book garbage. So write a report, say there's nothing here to see, and we'll just shut down Blue Book. But Edward Condon, all the way back in the late 1940s, early 1950s, during the time that China was falling in the Korean War and all that, Edward Condon was investigated by the FBI for communist activities. Suddenly the investigation dropped. Wonder why.
Interesting.
Okay?
Interesting. Oh, okay. Hey, Mike, which DVD do you want? Really quick. Ecker, Stonehill, Dennett, Schmidt, or Cremo?
Just throw a dart at one, and that's the one I'll take.
Don Ecker is yours.
Good deal. Good deal.
All
Who do
right.
I contact?
What's just email Rita, and she'll take care of it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. All the best, Michael.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks
Good
for
night,
the call.
Michael.
All right. Yeah, I've got all of my notifications are going out over the air. Keith is okay. Got another call coming in. You know what? Let's just keep going.
Keep going.
Why not? Okay. You're live with Bill Birnes on Fade to Black.
Hello.
Who's calling?
This is Dino in California.
Dino.
Yes.
Dino, how are you, sir? Let's just get it out of the way. What do you want? Stonehill, Ecker, Dennett, Schmidt, Cremo. What do you want?
I can't decide. I'm a Libra. I don't know. Just Schmidt.
Schmidt. He wants Donnie Schmidt.
Donnie Schmidt.
Okay.
All right. Good choice. All right.
Okay. I'm trying to keep my mood up, but I told you through many years of research and more intensely the last 2 or 3 in this subject, I keep hearing, I don't want to get into a dark place, but if this is not a true subject, if UFOs, aliens, and all this is not true, then why don't we have hearings? Why people like Bassett that are going to be out there doing stuff? And Stanton Friedman, I like him. He's very scientific, and he has been for years. And when I hear about the Phoenix Lights, and everybody made a big deal, and it broke the media, and your Malibu base, and Rendlesham Forest, but in recent times, these things come, and maybe once in a while, general vanilla media will pick it up, and then nothing happens.
That's right.
And
That's exactly the model. Because a long time ago, in the late 40s, early 50s, our intelligence agencies, including the CIA, went to a lot of the media and fed them stories. Now, if you want to have a fun time, you go back through some of the 1950s UFO movies and alien movies, like Invaders from Mars, The Silent Earth, things like that. And look at some of those writers from the late 1940s into the 50s, the Isaac Asimovs, and again, what you will find is that in some cases, these are stories that were seeded by the government for the express purpose of turning the UFO story into fiction. So here we are, 80 years or so after Roswell or whatever. So here we are, and we regard anything dealing with UFOs as fiction. In fact, we regard that so strongly that people who love their science fiction, like Trekkies, right, and Star Wars people who love that, want to hear nothing about UFOs. Why harsh my mellow with stories of real UFOs? I enjoy my Star Trek. I enjoy my Captain Kirk.
I disagree with that because that, I've been a Trekker for years, and I like it better than Star Wars. And I was told by a Russian guy years ago who was lecturing at a place about all kinds of strange things after the fall of the Soviet Union that sounded like science fiction, that all that stuff you see on Star Trek we already have and can do.
A lot of that stuff, we now have. And we're even experimenting now with the concept of a warp drive. But the point that I'm trying to make is that by and large, we ran a story in UFO magazine. This was back in 2004, I think. We ran this story 10 years ago. And one of the things we ran was a contest. Do you want to write science fiction? Do you want to see science fiction in the magazine? And one of the people who was writing for us was the science fiction editor at Tor Publishers. And the response from readers was so negative, we were threatened with canceled subscriptions. I hate you. I'm going to come after you in California. And so that was how crazy it was. And so we backed away from having any fiction mixed with quote unquote nonfiction. So, but as to your main question, why there has been no general disclosure, why these news stories go away, it's because that's what the government wants. Because in my opinion, the real truth about UFOs goes not to some visitors from another planet, but goes to our very existence on planet Earth and the very structure of a corporate system that we're in. And the more I examine this from different aspects, and I'm not being spiritual, I'm saying that I see this as something vaguely political, because why would the government care if UFOs are real? If they don't pose a threat, yeah, they're real, who cares? Some people from another planet. In fact, in our early framers and founders, like George Washington and Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson, fully believed in life in other worlds, because there was a book about life on other worlds in which this person came right out and said there's life on other worlds, and all these people believed in it. So no, it's something different.
Interest. Just everything you said. I mean, the day the Earth stood still, 1951, probably planted the seed in my little child's brain when I first saw that as a kid. And to this day, when I take it as an adult more seriously and I look into this stuff, this is what depresses me, that it gets to be so dark. And is it the government, or is it the illuminated ones that have a secret breakaway society? I mean, it's depressing. And when I talk to some people who have known me for years that respect me, they'll listen to me. But it's like the guy said the other night. He said, you show them the light and it blinds them, and they don't want to get critical, and they don't want to think. They don't want to think about 9/11. And I used to say, oh, don't worry about that stuff. And I'm just trying not to be dark. I just want
Well, don't be dark. I mean, it's not a question. It's really don't be dark. But and there's such conventional explanations for a lot of this stuff. For example, the reason is that nobody cares about UFOs. I mean, if UFOs are out there, I mean, think about this, like, try and be like, don't be passionate, but just be rational. If UFOs are out there and they're real, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do? Slap them around? You're not going to do anything.
You can't do a thing. Right.
There's nothing you can do. They're either real or they're fiction. And if the government is hiding the truth, what do you care? I mean, I know it sounds...
That point, excuse me, but to that point, I told a new friend that, and he is a pretty intelligent guy, and he likes music, and he does a lot of things. But when I bring up this subject, he goes, well, it could be. He said, I don't care. And I go, how could you not care? It could change the world.
Right. It certainly could change the world. But if it could change the world, and there is some reason that either industry, the Koch brothers, who knows, I mean, it could be anybody, doesn't want us to know, because let's just say, for argument's sake, we're talking about free energy. Yes, UFOs will bring free energy. In fact, in the pilot for UFO hunters that never aired, we actually have a discussion with someone in the know about why the UFO secret is held by a closely knit group and it's not being disclosed. It's a very interesting discussion. I don't know how to get it up on the air. But anyway, but it's true that if, let's just focus on one thing, free energy, okay?
0 point energy.
Free energy, exactly. Although some other researchers into 0 point energy have said flat out they have not found any UFOs that use it. Which is funny. We found other UFOs, but they don't use 0 point energy. But let's just go back to this point about what the whole thing means. By and large, if industry is going to adjust to free energy or to some kind of energy, wireless energy, Tesla-based wireless energy or so, there has to be a huge industrial conversion. It may take 5 years, it may take longer, but there's got to be an industrial conversion. So if there is some secret to making a profit on some of the technologies that come out of what we know about this other race, this other species, even if it's species of another dimension, if there is anything like that, industry is going to get their hands all over it. Nothing is going to happen for free.
Excuse me. I mean, I'm familiar with all this, and that's what depresses me, because if we are in the America that I grew up in, you know, the America that my uncle was on Omaha Beach for, and that's what worries me the most, that a few 1%ers are keeping the profit and running things because they want to stretch out their profit. That's what depresses me. What happened to for the people, by the people? And that's why I want to know the truth, no matter how scary or how it disrupts the whole system.
Well, I empathize with everything you're saying, but in practicality, since we're approximately the same age, I grew up in the same America that you did. And one of the things you come to see, at least in the business that I'm in, and one of the things that you come to see is that it wasn't what we thought it was. I mean, the 1938 War of the Worlds broadcast, we think it was just, you know, a gambit, fun. It was actually financed by the Rockefeller Foundation through Frank Stanton at Princeton, who later became the head of CBS. And the reactions to that 1938 Mercury Theater of the Year broadcast were manufactured by certain people planting stories in the media. It never happened. It was a total hoax. For the Rand Report years later to cite that event in 1938 as a rationale for not disclosing anything about UFOs.
And you know what? A bona fide, looking back, and as great as that broadcast was, a test. And and they were able to go, look, we can't do it because look what happened.
Right.
know?
And it didn't happen. What they said happened didn't happen.
Right. Exactly. It was
right.
It was a total
that's
test.
The fascinating thing. So the point that I'm trying to make to you is here that this wasn't the kind of America you think it was, but enjoy whatever memories you have, just as I do, because they're memories of bliss. But the fact is, all the people we revere, and we've had UFO disclosures, so don't be dark about it. Here's the first UFO disclosure we had, Harry Truman. Harry Truman went on the air disclosing the existence of UFOs. He said, these are UFOs, we know what they are. Okay? Maybe President Eisenhower didn't say anything, but he certainly talked about ghosts in the White House. And it was a ghost in the White House that helped him discover a structural flaw. That was President Eisenhower. President Nixon was actually showing Jackie Gleason where the alien bodies are buried. And JFK, if you read some of the secret JFK memos about UFOs and the Marilyn Monroe tapped phone transcript in which she says that JFK told her about UFOs, these are all items for disclosure.
And even John Lennon, I mean, Yoko Ono will talk about it in his, the girlfriend, what was the
Mei Ling.
Yeah, Lei Ling.
Yeah, she has admitted that John and Yoko said, John said, hey, you know, the other night in New York, you know, I woke up, I couldn't sleep, and I opened the door and there were these 6 midgets outside, you know, and she said she believes him. She didn't see anything, but, you know, that's, let's get into the present.
And look what happened. And look what happened to John Lennon. And figure out why and what book was in his back pocket and what book was in Mark Chapman's back pocket.
That's right. Oh, hey, you know what? I wanted to jump back to the 0 point energy discussion because Last night, I mentioned on the show teleportation, and we are right there. And I guarantee, I'm telling you right now, we can do it right now. We are doing it right now. That's it. Anybody?
Well, they leaked it, Jimmy.
Yeah,
they leaked it about 3 or 4 years ago.
Yes, they did.
There was something in a science thing saying, we were able to teleport, but it was only like a couple of atoms, and we moved them across the room.
Yes. So, and with 3D printing really, that's teleportation if you ask me. But it's not. But let me just say this to your point, Dino. The reason why teleportation isn't available right now, think about it. If we could teleport to work every day, that's it. There would be no reason to sell another drop of oil. If we could,
and there'd be also, we'd have a solution to some of the global warming, whether you believe it or not. I see the weather changing. I don't like breathing bad air.
Right.
So which evil is worse?
Well, but
that's a good question. Okay, so there's your logical question. Which evil is worse? It depends not on which evil is worse. Okay, this is an existential question you just raised. It doesn't depend on what evil is worst at all. It depends on who benefits from whatever evil it is. And that's the way you have to look, okay?
And as long as those profits are there, those petrodollars are there, and every economy for every country in the world is based on petrodollars. It doesn't matter if it's Russia, and it doesn't matter if it's Venezuela. It just doesn't matter what country it is. They all have cars. They all need to buy oil, and as long as oil is traded in dollars and petrodollars drive the entire world's economy, nothing is going to change. Not until that changes. So until then, there isn't going to be any alternative. I saw the other day, check this out, Bill. I saw the other day an electric car from 1918, something like that, some crazy date that got 100 miles per charge at 35 miles an hour, 1918. Now, we're doing the exact same thing today. You're getting 60 miles on a charge or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Nothing is advanced. And
well, what about the steam motors, the steam cars they had? Water.
Well, there's that aspect too. But what I mean is none of that matters to anybody until petrodollars changes. And
well, I'll tell you, it would matter to me if I could run my house on something the size of a suitcase. I'd retire now and I'd do some other pursuits that would help the world more than what I'm doing for a living.
So you live in California. Where in California?
I like to keep it secret. I'm a little paranoid.
Or do you live in Northern California or Southern California?
Yeah.
In Northern California.
Yes.
Okay, and do you have a lot of sun where you live?
Not as much as Southern Cal.
Okay, well, I guess my suggestion is you can start taking those steps right now, even though they may be minimal. For example, if you have solar panels on your roof, if you've got extra solar panels outside, you can have hot water heat in your house just through the solar panels and the batteries. Is it
People
expensive?
in the neighborhood have it on their roofs, and I have double pane windows. I invested in that.
Right.
And I have a tankless water heater, so I'm not burning a pilot all the time.
There you go. But the
point is, just think if that could run, on $5 a month instead of the PG&E bill of, $150 a month. Wouldn't that change that people could work less and maybe do productive things, maybe mellow out, maybe create things, and maybe be better and nicer to each other and solve some of the Earth's problems instead of sweating and toiling on a 40-hour-a-week job?
So here's the big picture. You're absolutely right in everything you just said. But see, here's the big picture. If what you say comes true, there are those who believe the world as they know it will come to an end. Yeah. It is important that you be kept working, that I be kept working, that we all be kept working. It is important that we all be kept to produce. In fact, the best explanation of this is in I think it's a 1978 movie. It's called Network, and it was written by Patty Chayefsky, and it stars Ned Beatty and William Holden and Peter Finch.
I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore.
That's right, and Faye Dunaway. Ned Beatty's speech to Peter Finch explains it all. That's why I think that Patty Chayefsky is one of the most prescient writers in the world. He predicted the manipulation of news, the corporate ownership of media, and the growth of reality television. That speech says it all.
Hey, Dino, really quick before I let you go, we've got to, let some other people
I gotta move on.
win some DVDs. What did you think about the Huffington Post article?
Well, see, this is the same thing that I see with a lot of things. You bring up a good point, or someone who's a researcher who's really serious and is not a con man comes up with evidence, comes up with facts, and that's why I want you to go underwater there before they change something and move the furniture, because you can always get someone that'll take the other side until you have some kind of documented proof.
It's in 2,000 feet of water. So you'd have to get a very deep water diving sub or one of those robotic rovers to do that. And you don't know what you're going to get. First of all, it's pitch black. And you don't know what you're going to get as you approach those, whether they're caves, whether they're artificial or not. That's part of a Navy base. The Navy has a base at Point Doom. It's very serious.
Do their rights go underwater and
absolutely they go as they go to the center of the earth and all the way up through the atmosphere.
Well, then let's have fun, just like the people at Area 51. Don't talk about it. Get someone to go in there. Let's put out the network call here and through all the UFO community. Somebody has a lot of money and maybe a submersible or a robot, and they should just go down and then report to all of us before anybody knows about it.
We're working on it, Dino.
Paul Allen, Steve Ballmer, those are the ones
I'll be waiting.
Dino, have a great night, and email Rita your address, and we'll get that out there to you.
Rita, so that's through your regular email.
Yeah, okay. Just you know what to do. It'll all get to Rita.
Thanks for the time. I'm enjoying the conversation tonight.
Always, Dino. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, that opens up some more phone lines. And by the way, everybody, turn off your caller ID, or we don't pick up that call. Your number must be displayed. Man, So, Bill, let's get back to a couple of things when it comes to. The one thing that I thought that Lee probably should have done on this article, and I'll just put it out there now, and I'm sure he can appreciate this. Lee's a good guy and an intelligent guy. What he didn't do is he used me for quotes for the ufology side. You know what I mean? For that side of the fence, he used me. But the article is about me. Why not go out to give you a call, or Preston Dennett, or, Steve Murillo, any of these guys that have been researching up and down the coast for years. I'm certainly not the expert there. I'm the messenger. Why not? Because if you have the USGS and you have an FBI guy and you have John Anthony West, all very serious guys, and people that I'm in communication with, well, except for the FBI guy. I don't know anybody in the FBI. I don't want to. But why not have it, somebody from the other side of the fence in the media?
I'll tell you why.
Is there a reason?
I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because the article is not about the formation in Malibu. The article is about the fact that you reported the formation in Malibu.
Interesting.
And that you speculated that it was UFOs. It wasn't about the formation at all.
If he would have done that, do you think the editors would have poo-pooed on it too as well?
No, because the Huffington, that's what he did do. And that's what the Huffington Post is all about. It's not so much about the news. It's about the news as reported. So, I mean, yes, there are original stories. Yes, there's a lot of stuff in there. Yes, it's really a magazine that takes a liberal bent. But its focus, when it does its serious articles, is on the media as it reports the news. It is the prism of reality through the news. And that's exactly what this story was. It was the prism of reality. It was reality that people have been sending you maps or points to maps of Google Earth, but it's that this was actually reported on a radio show.
Interesting. And what do you think, as the other outlets start to pick up this story over the next few days, which they will, how do you think they'll handle it? Do you think that they would care?
It'll be a joke.
Really?
It'll be, well, the guys in the tin hats, again, have found something else to scream about.
Right. And that's the other thing. I'm not a tinfoil hat guy.
Right.
And neither are you. Well, you are sort of. but
it's not tin, it's felt.
Okay. And I know you understand what I'm saying. I'm not one of those guys. I'm not out. When I think of tinfoil hat, and this is what I think of a little bit like Van Tassel, like George, or those conventions or whatever you want to call it that he used to have out there in the desert, where everybody was talking about, taking rides to Venus. That's a little bit different, and that's not, although I'm about that to a degree, and the show is certainly about that to a degree, but we are not that to a degree too. Am I making sense? And
Well, yeah. I mean, what you're saying is that you're not a true believer in this stuff, but you really like to entertain the interesting stories and speculate about them, even when the stories may include what's going on out there at the Integratron or the giant rocket landers. And that when the mainstream or the lamestream media picks up, if they pick up on the story from the Huffington Post, if they do that you're going to be the one, you're the radio commentator who actually had the temerity to talk about this in the same breath that you mentioned UFOs. And that was the interview you gave to Lee Spiegel. And that's what he ran with. It's about the media. So, yeah, in a story about the media, it's going to be, well, they're overhyping it again. The guys who basically report all these UFO stories, late night radio, internet radio. I mean, you could just, attach all the descriptors you want to.
Right.
But that's literally how the if they treat this at all. I mean, you and I have talked about how they treated, you and I didn't talk about it. It was the director of this movie that we're working up, that it was the way the media treated the recent release of the TWA Flight 800 documentary by Tom Stalkop and Christian Borgensen and people like that. They dismissed it, even though the evidence in that documentary was compelling. They seized on the one element and I remember John King and Aaron Burnett doing this on CNN. The two of them seized on the one element and they distorted it out of all proportion because they didn't understand the purpose of that event in the documentary. It was a scientific test of center wing tags. They didn't understand why they did it. They couldn't figure it out, and they couldn't figure out why the evidence, because they basically flat out knew that the one thing you don't do is raise the conspiracy flag for TWA Flight 800.
Right.
You just don't do it. Okay? And that's what I mean by this filter. And that is why, and they derided the Tom Stalkops of the world for this. And that is why, if this goes to the mainstream media, which I doubt it will, if it does, the point is there will be some derision in the fact that, well, the Coast Guard Geological Survey says this, and a scientist says this, and somebody else says this. Boy, this radio guy, he'll do anything.
Right. It's all about clicks.
Right.
Yeah. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We are talking to Bill Birnes, and we're discussing the recent Huffington Post article that was written by Lee Spiegel. And again, I want to, you have to thank Huffington Post, and Lee for, taking the chance on something like this. And, with all of the mainstream media that's out there, they're looking at all of the stuff that's going around on the web. And I'm sure that this has passed a couple of editors or producers' desk and through their hands, and they choose to pass it up. And with Huffington Post, they didn't pass up the opportunity. And,
right, because go ahead.
Well, over at CNN or Fox or MSNBC or Yahoo or whoever, Bloomberg, whatever you want to talk about, even the Wall Street Journal, they don't have a weird news page. You know what I mean?
No,
they don't have a UFO page. And that's one of the things that Huffington Post does. They will roll the dice. But this is the other thing. You don't have a breaking story like this every week. A story like this comes along. I had said this at the intro to the show. I've said it before. You've got, in the last 50, 60 years, you've got Roswell, you've got Rendlesham Forest, you've got Area 51. That's kind of it as far as really big.
But what's the biggest story?
I don't know.
In the world of UFOs. It's not Roswell. It's not Rendlesham Forest.
Hit me.
Betty and Barney Hill.
Oh, yeah. Of course.
And the reason is Roswell, Rendlesham Forest, Area 51. Again, who cares?
Well, and you know what? You got to throw Travis in then. If you're going to go,
and you got to throw Travis.
You got to throw Travis.
But the reason, yes, Travis Walton as well. But the reason I'm citing Betty and Barney Hill is that they wound up on the cover of Look magazine.
Yes, they did.
They were the poster children of the reality of UFOs. And yes, Betty Hill, for the rest of her life, we would cross on book tours, and I'd see her carrying the alien head around. But when you think about Betty and Barney Hill, and you think about the facts in the case that really nobody ever talks about, they were, to my mind, the single biggest story, because the Roswell story was a blip on the horizon in 1947. It was there, and the next day it was gone because it was a weather balloon. And it didn't reemerge until 1978 when Jesse Marcel and Stan Friedman began talking. So even though there were all these rumors of flying saucers and stuff in the 1950s, largely driven by the science fiction movies, Roswell was not a major story. Recently, ever since 78, it's been researched. Area 51, again, it was Bob Lazar. It was a human being that never meant, okay, let's look at the commonalities here, okay? Let's look at the commonalities, because you raise a very interesting point about how stories get big. Mm-hmm. And the commonalities in all these stories, in Rendlesham, in Area 51, in that story broken by Bob Lazar, in Betty and Barney Hill, in Roswell, it was never initially, except in the case of Roswell, and then that's iffy, never officially originally about the UFO. The case of Roswell was an air crash. And the folks from the city of Roswell, Travis County, rolled on that crash. It was an air crash. It was anything else but an air crash. They rolled on it. And that's when they discovered the bodies and the strange craft and the strange material and the debris field. That's when they discovered it. And that's what prompted Roger Ramey, according to Walter Haut, that's what provoked Roger Ramey to get down from the 8th Air Force, go to Roswell, and concoct the cover-up, which meant sending Jesse Marcel back up to Fort Worth and then stabbing him in the back and ruining his military career. But it was about an aircraft, and the only reason that Ramey allowed that story, because he ordered through Blanchard, Walter Haut, to go to the press,
right,
was that he was going to dismember that story the next day. He knew that in advance. It was about an air crash. The story of Area 51 is about Bob Lazar. It's about how Bob Lazar got a security clearance pulled. It's all the other stuff came out afterwards, but it was Bob Lazar trying to keep his marriage together. And taking his wife out to the desert to see the thing. And then they took Gene Huff out, and then they took George Knapp out and John Lear out. It was about Bob Lazar going back the next time with his wife, because he was feeling so empowered by being able to show his wife exactly what he was doing, and that resulted in the whole story. Bob Lazar was never out there to disclose the truth about UFOs or the falsity about UFOs or UFOs in general. He was out to impress his wife. Betty and Barney Hill, nothing. They had no intent to go public with their story. They told the story separately to Benjamin Simon, their psychiatrist, under hypnotic regression. There was this young woman, I'm calling her young. She was transcribing the tapes that Benjamin Simon made. The Hills didn't even know what they said to Simon. Remember, Betty Hill remembered everything until she saw the creatures grab Barney and grab her and push her up the ramp to this craft, and her memories stopped.
That's
and
right.
It was only under regression that those memories came back. They never intended to tell this story to the mass market. It was only when this a transcriber released her transcripts of the tapes to this reporter who wrote for a Boston travel magazine that immediately caught fire, and that's what wound him up on the book deal with Fowler, and that's what wound him up on the cover of Look magazine. And nobody was out to disclose it. John Hilkovich was doing an article about airport safety and travel. Rendlesham Forest it only came back when the people who encountered that experience were reporting what the Air Force did to them.
Yeah, and with each one of those stories, and as seminal as each one is, but with each one, it was something that was a major breakthrough, a moment in ufology and what is going down. And I look, and when we look back from today, let's go back 25, 30 years. So you've got Rendlesham, that was 1980, didn't break until a couple of years later. You've got Bob Lazar, which that went down in the early 90s. But now we're sitting in 2014. And between then and now, there really hasn't been, we've just been plodding along.
There was O'Hare Airport, 2007, 2008.
And Belgium.
And
Stephenville, too, yeah. But now we have this, and it is something. This is real. This is sitting right off of the coast. It's right here, and it's real. This isn't anything. What it is doesn't matter. The point is, it is real, and it needs to be investigated, and that's it. It is a really, really big deal. I think all of us. You, everybody that's listening, everybody that's been involved, everybody that has watched the videos, the video that Third Phase of Moon did is probably up to 250,000 views.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what the views are on our YouTube channel, but these are tens of thousands on our channel alone that have never heard about this story before. So now it is out, and now it just needs to go to the next level. And I think everybody's going to remember this.
Well, we'll see. I mean, it depends. Stories generally have traction if they deal with issues that people consider personal issues. And that's, again, part of the problem with the media and UFOs is that these are not personal issues to people. I mean, Betty and Barney Hill, personal issue. Travis Walton, personal issue. His friends were accused of murder.
Right? A personal issue. The security team from RAF Bentwaters, it's a personal issue. They were badly mistreated by the Air Force Office of Special Investigations and possibly by the NSA. Roswell, look at Jesse Marcel's career. Yeah.
I mean, so when you look at some of these cases that get into the media, there were real human beings involved in the case. That's why the Phoenix Lights story was only marginally. I mean, the real human beings involved in the case, not to mention the witnesses like Lynn Ketai and Terry and people like that. I'm talking about people like Francis Barwood, whose political career was destroyed by it. Fife Symington, who publicly had to admit that he deliberately lied. He deliberately made fun of the whole thing when the whole time he saw the object himself at 8:30 from his own backyard, just literally 100 feet above his head.
Right.
So, I mean, you've got personal stories there, but the real big stories are stories where human beings are affected directly. I mean, look at the popularity of all of the Bud Hopkins stories, the Brooklyn Bridge sightings, intruders, all of those stories. Whether you believe them or not, they were about people.
Right. What was her? What was Linda?
Linda Cortelli.
Yeah.
Not her real name.
Right. What was her real last name? Papalano. I can't remember. But yeah, you're right about that. All personal stuff. So just because that this is potentially some historic a megalithic structure that could be tens of thousands of years old or 100 years old, because we didn't die trying. You know what I mean?
The trick is to get someone with enough financial resources to pay for a robotic submarine, because you're not going down there in one of our submarines. I mean, a manned submarine going down there right off a naval base at Point Doom
ain't gonna happen.
So you need one of those robotic submarines with an awful lot of light, because as you and I both know, it is 2,000 feet down.
Yeah. 2,000. Well, 1,500 feet to the top of the platform.
Right. Well, you're just not going to get any light down there.
Right.
So you're going to need a whole powerful. It'll be like a moon base set up like that at the bottom of at that seafloor, and if it turns out, as I speculate that there are, these are actual tunnels. For what purpose? I can only I speculate that it's our own submarines, but that, I mean, if that's the case, Dick Cheney had the best line when talking about this. He said, "If I had been so briefed on UFOs, it would have been classified, and if it's classified, I can't talk about it with you."
Right.
And that's really what you're looking at with this. If these are artificial to allow entry, they would be classified. If they're classified, nobody's going to tell you about them, except to say, you be your own judge on Google Earth.
You've sailed up and down the coast.
Yeah.
I haven't, which is weird. I've spent a lot of time on sailboats, but I haven't actually gone. I've only done very limited boating, in Marina del Rey and so forth. But you've been up and down the coast right there. What are the restrictions with the Navy base being right there? You've got the Marine base also there.
Right. Well, you've got the big warning that you're in a missile test range. So that's the big warning. And that there is artillery shelling out there.
Okay.
And that these are called military operations areas, or MOAs, military operations areas. And when those things get hot, they are completely restricted.
How far out?
Runs pretty far out.
Yeah, and they have patrol boats out there, I'm assuming.
When they are going hot, they have patrol boats out there. And if the sensors, and we know this from when we were at Andros Island exploring that base, AUTEC, the sensor mechanism, and at Area 51, the sensor mechanisms are extraordinarily sophisticated, and they will spot you. Like, you're not going to get dressed up in dark costumes like ninjas, paint your face black, and try and get to that place at night. There are motion sensors all over the place, and they have satellites, and you will be spotted. And dare you speak on a radio, that will be heard. So the point that I'm trying to make is, this is something that you're not going to be able just to cozy up to and take a peek inside, poke inside each little hole and see what's in there. I mean, that place is very well guarded if it's what I think it is.
Right. Well, there are, when you look on certain aspects of Google Earth in that section, there are areas that say no swimming, no diving.
Right.
And so I can't remember, but it's a good chunk of PCH where the red line goes.
Right.
I mean, why? That's along the coast. It's not 6.5 miles out. Why would they do that? I don't understand why they would limit. It goes out about a mile out, and it's probably 6 miles in between Magoo and Doom. That part of the beach is completely restricted. Now we know north of that and south of that, it's some of the best surfing water anywhere in the world. And that's all they do is surf right there. Why would they do that right in front? Because it's still south of Magoo and Wainimi. Why would they limit it? It's in between the base or the anomaly that we're talking about and the beach. That frontage beach right there.
Right. It's as you drive north on PCH, the whole thing juts out. Yeah, right. Well, my thought is a whole bunch of reasons. One, it's a military area. So, yeah, you want to go sit on the beach, and I've driven that stretch like more than I want to remember. And you could barbecue there. You'll see people out there getting sun. But no, that area of the water is restricted. And no swimming, no diving. It's absolutely true.
Just got this email in. I want to bang this past you really quick. The meaning of Area 51, and it says, while on the subject, I have heard that Area 51, the 5 stands for the 5th letter, E, and then the 1 standing for 1 meaning extraterrestrial number 1. Do you know anything about this? Please
that's
discuss.
Absolutely not true. The Area 51, first of all, it was never called Area 51. It was called Nellis Air Force Base.
Okay.
That's 1. 2, the base wasn't founded in 1951. That was in the Annie Jacobson book. Wrong. It was 53 to 55, more like 55. So that's that. The 51 comes from the Nevada tax map going all the way back to the 19th century. That parcel was designated number 1 on the tax, was 51 on the tax map. Because what happened was, as the United States began to expand westward, the federal government began to organize all the western states as a rectangular tax maps. They began to parcel out these things. And Area 51, although it's not a perfect rectangle, sits in that parcel of Area 51 on the tax map. That's how it got its name.
Got a bunch of tweets coming in and one email. They cannot find a copy of the 21st Century of America. Where can they find a copy of that?
Go to Amazon if they're not fighting with Macmillan. Go to Amazon and just type in The Haunting of 21st 21st Century America by Joel Martin and my name Birnes, and it'll come right up.
So 21st being 21st is the way to do it.
Right.
Okay, I'm looking at some of these tweets and also the email. Yeah, 21st is spelled out. So don't spell it out. There you go. You'll find it. Okay. So thank you for doing that, Bill.
Okay.
Now, in all of your you have so much experience with the media on every different front. You've got television, you've got radio, movies, books, publishing, magazines. You've done it all. Are there rules for suppression, and how did you about stories and what I mean by that is it something that isn't in print? You're not checking off or signing off on certain rules, but is there a general because there's not supposed to be censorship here in America?
Oh, there's censorship all over the place. So I mean, you take that out of the hopper immediately. I mean, of course there's censorship. And of course, well, first of all, the standard censorship, across the board, is pornography, libel, and defamation. And those are the standard. I mean, if you are going to, even though there is, in case of libel and defamation, it's a higher standard of proof for a newspaper for any news organization. It's the New York Times v. Sullivan case, where the person alleging defamation, slander, libel, where the person alleging that, immediately the media has an exemption from liability in that instance, if and only if the media's pursuit of that story or the media's publication of that story was absent malice. So in other words, they could not have been deliberately trying to hurt somebody, nor could they have been recklessly indifferent to the truth of the matter. Either one constitutes malice. But if it's without malice and the story's wrong, incorrect, then that news organization is exempt from liability, especially if it corrects itself. And some courts order them to correct themselves, to correct the story. And one of the most famous ones is Matt Drudge's story about one of Bill Clinton's supporters. I forget who he was, where he published something and it was flat out untrue. And the next day he retracted the story and said it was untrue. And that person sued Drudge. And the court threw out the lawsuit. They said, look, he retracted it. And, he's just an online blogger guy, so no lawsuit. And I was surprised at that. And that's a case a law students study in law school dealing with the ethics and the legalities of journalism. So again, so that's one standard censorship we all agree to. And the other one, but then there are the unspoken censorships. The one like you don't do UFOs. They're not news. UFOs are not news. They are weird. They may be human interest. If you've got some guy in a tin hat with wings running up and down the street in a poster saying they're here, run for your lives. I saw them. That would go in human interest. That would go in like weird stuff, but it certainly would not go in news. It would not go in news unless the person stopped traffic and caused a massive accident on the highway. Now it's news.
When you were at UFO Magazine, you are breaking stories all the time. You've got information coming in, some of it great, photographic evidence. I'm sure you had videos being mailed to you all the time. Were you ever contacted by mainstream media because of something that you published and they wanted more information on the story? Did that ever happen?
Yeah, it happened a few times. I mean, one was CNN because they wanted more information about Philip Corso, and that happened immediately. But to your point, where mainstream media has contacted me the most was in mainstream stories. I mean, when I published the O.J. Simpson book with Globe, right, the tabloid newspaper, when I published it with them, and I had to edit that. When I did that, I mean, I was on everything from hard copy to Hollywood Tonight, because I was living in California at the time,
right,
all over the place, because that was news, right? UFOs really weren't. Even the Phil Corso book, which only made the bestseller list because of this whole flap. I mean, we were on Art Bell, we were on Coast to Coast. And we did very well. We were on the bestseller list the following week. But it was also the fact that on the cover of the first two printings of the book was Strom Thurmond's introduction.
Right.
Basically affirming that the United States won the Cold War because of our relationship with UFOs that crashed at Roswell.
Right. Well,
and they couldn't print that book fast enough.
Well, but okay, putting Philip Corso aside, I'm asking more of a general question because every month you guys published, and there was always pictures of something, and there was always an article about something that was seen somewhere. That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah,
did any
absolutely not. No mainstream did until UFO Hunters. When UFO Hunters was on the air, yes, well, we were all over mainstream media.
Right, but as far as anything else, they didn't care. And back to my point, which is a very important one, in order to get these stories out, you can't go to mainstream media. You just can't do it. You can't.
Exactly. They're not going to look at it. Even if you had the best photograph, real photograph, and you've seen them, Rex Heflin, Paul
Yep.
Trent, McMinnville, those things.
Yep.
Unless you have the best photograph in the world, at which point they will then hire this team of debunkers to debunk you, to scream that it's been photoshopped. We can see the piano wire in there. The metrics don't make any sense. So, yeah, they will be, it doesn't matter. They will not cover you. You are outside of the Overton window. And even when presidents, now when you say disclosure, I will tell you, Harry Truman, Dwight Eisenhower's meeting at Edwards Air Force Base, Moonfork. But Harry Truman, Richard Nixon and Jackie Gleason, John F. Kennedy's memos about UFOs, President Ford's own demand in a letter to Mendel Rivers, demanding House Science Committee hearings on UFOs, and they held them. Okay, Jimmy Carter's reported UFO sighting over in Georgia. Ronald Reagan's 2 UFO sightings, one of which was exactly over the area you just brought up. Point Dume, that beach south of Point Dume, Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan driving down PCH for a birthday party. It was William Holden's birthday party, Bill Holden, the actor, at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, I think. And there they both told the story of this huge UFO that went out over PCH to that very beach area and dropped into the water. Ronald Reagan.
Nothing in the media. Nobody cared.
Right. And Ronald Reagan reported his first media UFO sighting directly to the bureau chief, the Sacramento bureau chief of the Wall Street Journal. And nobody will, and this is intentional, it's not negligence, it's intentional. Nobody will tie in, and I'll tell you how I know that, okay? Nobody will tie in Ronald Reagan's UFO sightings to his statement that what if aliens attacked us, wouldn't our petty differences be very small? His statement at the UN. Now, here was my test of that very thing.
Go.
Rachel Maddow was convulsed with laughter as she reported the Ronald Reagan story of what he said at the UN and what he said to Gorbachev. Ha, 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 ha. Look at that story. That's a riot that Reagan said that. I can't believe it. Wrote to her describing in detail Ronald Reagan's 2 UFO sightings and the fact that they were confirmed, one by a reporter, confirmed they were attested to by a reporter at the Wall Street Journal, and by Lucille Ball. And I said, so you could call Ronald Reagan crazy, but he had 2 documented UFO sightings that he talked about. Not a response.
With this article, when we first reported it, it didn't have any problems going on to 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 websites almost overnight. There was no issues with that. There was no issues with it showing up on pretty large websites, on the forums, getting the discussion out, whether I was a crackpot, and full of it, and Dale and Maxwell or not. That has nothing to do with it. The point is, the conversation was free. People wanted to talk about it. It was free form. Websites didn't have issues putting it out there because it was interesting. It was a good story, and it took off. And mainstream media just, and in any way wasn't interested in it until Huffington Post. And
right.
I just don't understand why.
Because different media organizations sniff the trail of other media organizations to find stories. So it is now acceptable for you to look silly reporting about an object on the Pacific coast that all these scientists say is natural, but you say could possibly be a UFO base inside the continental shelf. So it's not about the object itself. It's not about that formation itself. And it's not really about UFOs themselves. It's about some guy on the radio seeing a perfectly natural object, they say,
right,
on Google Earth,
right,
and suddenly speculating about UFOs. That just shows how these crackpot internet radio stations operate.
Oh, man. And I've tried to say from the word go, hey, it could be natural. Let's just go find out. It's really funny. Yeah, you're probably 100% correct. And are you saying that through your own experience too?
Yeah,
as well?
Of course I am. I mean, when we did the Dr. Feelgood book last year, here's a book that, quite frankly, I talked about this before, my intellectual purpose in the book, my Sherlock Holmesian person in the book, okay, that was my Sherlock Holmes approach, was why did this one doctor have so much influence over so many people in the highest literati, political, show business circles, and what motivated him to keep doing this, and the fascination of the drug itself, methamphetamine, creating its own network of users around this doctors, and the relationship among those different people, the deaths it caused, the conspiracies it caused, the death of a president. I mean, really, I could spend the next week going through all the aspects of this network. Why the Washington Post? Why the New York Times? Why this? Why that? Why Richard Nixon? Could do all that. But the conservative media and the British media, they went wild. But the conservative media, because they love to find the magic bullet. So the magic bullet for Kennedy, everybody knew that Kennedy was a womanizer. Jackie wrote to her priest in Ireland telling him she was upset about his womanizing. So that's public information. But the idea of this was the president's hidden medical history. He had this disease, that disease, that disease, that disease. People knew it, but it never really came to the fore. His womanizing, his taking LSD, his methamphetamine use, that was fabulous stuff, especially when you combine it with the president taking off all of his clothing at the Carlisle Hotel in a drug high, running through the halls naked. They loved that on Fox. And we were on Fox. We were on the radio. We were everywhere with that book. Dick Morris told us from day one, presidential advisor to Bill Clinton, a conservative guy who predicted Romney's victory. He's red-faced about that. He told me flat out, you'll never get on mainstream media with this outside of the conservative side of the media. Nobody will touch you. You are poison. And sure enough, the New York Times did a retrospective. Jill Abramson did a retrospective of all. And I mean, not to brag, but I'm a New York Times best-selling author.
Yes, you are.
And for the New York Times not to cover this particular book, in which the New York Times itself and two of its reporters are instrumental to the telling of the story. Instrumental. How the Times got the story, what the Times did with it, why the Times ran with it, why the Times hesitated about running it, then why the Times finally ran it, and why it was doing it against the Washington Post, as the two of them fought over the Watergate story. Then, in the height of all that, Nixon, who this doctor turned, he wouldn't treat him because he called Nixon an alcoholic, wouldn't give him methamphetamines. Nixon starts the war on drugs. And this guy becomes the poster boy, and he wanted this doctor to give him drugs. I mean, this is only in America. This is, right? Nope. It touched the Kennedys. We will not, it's an assassination conspiracy book. It wasn't. Didn't matter. It got so grouped. So I know exactly what I was getting.
What did you do about it?
Gave me the turndowns from the Daily Show, from the Bill Maher.
Right. Well, what did you end up doing about it? Or did you, or could you do anything about it? That's the question.
We were picked up in the print media, the New York papers, the British papers, and we, definitely, I told you I'm in a movie deal for this. I wrote the script for the movie. So the fact is, this has settled into culture. This is now settled into culture. So I'm not worried about the book, but it just pointed to me starkly that there is a strong sluice gate in the media where only certain stories get through.
Do you have to sit on your hands?
You write to people. You write letters. I mean, but these last two books I did, I sent one of them to Chris Hayes, along with Chris Hayes. He told the exact. He was raising this was the story of veterans, wounded minds, and the school shootings, Hearts of Darkness. So he's talking about this. He's saying, why this rhetorical screaming into the universe? Why is this happening to us? I sent him the two books, sent him an email, sent him the two books, returned, unopened.
Huh.
That's your liberal media right there.
Well, my take or my approach to this was to only put it on the website, speak about it on the show, and then let it go and let it, not to push it. There's no reason to. And I didn't want everybody out there to think that we were doing this for money or doing this for clicks or doing this for fame or, nepotism's the wrong word, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say. And
right. But let's be honest. The reason you have websites that report the news from the radio show is because you want folks to go there to read the news and listen to you on the radio. What's wrong with that?
No, nothing's wrong with that. And if I hadn't, what's more dangerous, though? This is the thing. If I hadn't have taken the approach that I did, what if I just ignored, the images that were sent to me? And I said, whatever. And, or suppressed it myself and just thought, no, nobody's going to care about this. If I wouldn't have said anything, isn't that worse than saying something?
Well, you would be your own censor. I mean, we ran into a pack of trouble years ago with the magazine when this person, Colonel X, told us there was a UFO. We actually found the thing too, that there was a UFO flying over the Las Vegas National Forest. Right?
Right.
He said it was there. Go up there. He'll leave a ladder for us or the telescope for us in a barn. So we were back and forth with him. We got chastised all over the place. You put this stuff in the cover. Stephen Greer was screaming at us for this. So how dare we step on his investigation? We said, what investigation? We're a magazine. We're not stepping on anything. So when the time came to do the first episode of UFO Hunters, folks can read about this whole story in the UFO Hunters Book 1. You can get that also from Amazon. So we reported on this, and then we did the first episode. And I said, look, we're going to Washington. So why not fly to, that was the UFOs before Roswell, the Maury Island episode. So he said, look, since we're going to Washington anyway, why don't we, instead of flying from LAX, let's fly from McCarran Airport in Las Vegas, but let's go track this thing down. It literally is on the way. You take your vans, you drive from McCarran, you dump them off, you get on a plane, you go to Seattle or Tacoma. But before we do that, take a day and you drive to Vegas, and then and we did. Okay, so the guy was telling us, this Colonel X, no, don't come, you can't do it. I said, nobody tells me not to come. So we went up to the Las Vegas National Park, saw the object from Jim Sanders' house. Jim Sanders, downing of TWA Flight 800. We saw the object from his house in Vegas. We went up to National Forest, up the mountain, set ourselves up at a restaurant up there. Big telescope, big camera, big star map computer. Set it all up, found the object. There it was. There she was, sitting right over the horizon, bright as can be. I walk inside. I text Nancy. We found it. There it is. I hit the send button. Beep, 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 beep. The object turns its lights off and drops beneath the horizon. What is it, anti-gravity? Well, we go back to Sanders' house. He says, darndest thing. This object disappeared. What did you do? I said, I don't know. We photographed it. Bill Scott, who was the Aviation Week Space Technology Rocky Mountain Bureau Chief, not anymore, he's retired, but he's been a guest on our show. He said that was an observation platform, that was part of Echelon. That was NSA. Didn't say Echelon. He said that was part of NSA. They scrubbed your message. They sent you a message. They knew exactly who you were, where you're texting, where you're going from. This is like, 6 years before Edward Snowden.
Right.
So episode never aired, never saw the light of day.
The way that you tell the story, it sounds like that was the timing. How do you feel? Do you feel that it was too, I hate to use that word coincidence, but that's the way it went down. Is that how you feel now?
That's exactly how it went down. They saw the message. They knew they were being spotted. They knew who we were. They could read our license plates from wherever they were in the sky. And it takes, can you imagine the technology that we already have in our own computers? You read the license plate. It's a rental car. Run the plates. It was rented to UFO hunters. Motion picture company. They saw us. Okay, fine. Let's go. Okay, shut it down.
I've got like 5 things that I've got to ask you that are flying through the Twitter world here really quick. So let me just bang this out. Let me go to this one first. Why would Stephen Greer care?
Why? Because in the UFO world, the downside of the UFO world, and I could go on and on through a whole bunch of cases where people seize on a case, they treat the case as their own property. They become proprietary towards all the information in the case. And as a result, they will fight you for jurisdiction over that case, even when you're not fighting for jurisdiction. We found it in this Colonel X case. We found it in the Maury Island episode. We found it in Stephenville. I can go on and on.
Are you still running in Pennsylvania?
Running the show in Pennsylvania?
No, for Congress.
Oh, no. It was for state assembly. And so I'm at I'm voting. It's primary day. And I walk outside, and there's the local Democratic Party chairman. So I say, hey, you've got nobody on the ballot for state assembly for this place. Oh, yeah. We have nobody on the ballot. I said, how come? In America, we have elections. We don't have coronations. We have elections. You win, you lose, but you run. People vote for you. It's called democracy. So he said, well, we need a candidate. I said, okay, fine, I'll be the candidate. Takes my name. We're all set. They never called.
Do you get paid for something like that?
Being a state assemblyman? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Is it a full-time gig?
It's a full-time gig. I mean, you'll see people that are like, I have another business, right? But I'm also a state assemblyman. I mean, you're not living in Harrisburg.
Right.
You just go back and forth.
Right. Okay, so what happened? That's
they
it?
Never called.
Nothing?
Not a thing.
Well,
why?
Who got elected?
Well, we don't know until November. But
well, can't you write yourself in? Frank Zappa.
I can write myself in. I can do that, certainly. I should call them. But see, between then and now, we signed the Mickey Rooney book with a big publisher.
Right.
So now I am like totally immersed in writing this manuscript, because done right with the right promotion, maybe they'll forget that I'm the UFO guy and promote the book. It's this sexy, scandalous, unbelievably scandalous book.
Yes, it is. Okay, let me keep going. I got a bunch of stuff here. Please ask Bill what he thinks is going on. Okay, here we go. We're going to do this for the next 20 minutes till the bottom of the hour. MH370.
Oh, well, real expert there, a couple of experts, Jim Sanders, again, down in Flight 800, who said, everybody's looking for the plane when the plane's already landed someplace. I mean, let's just say that the pilots, First of all, Jim is saying that the one thing we're not going to do is broadcast the fact that the plane was either hijacked or delivered or something like that, or if the plane is still around. There are people in our intelligence circles who believe the plane actually did land, never crashed in the ocean. No, we may be proven wrong, but it actually landed, and it's going to be used as a guided missile, just like 9/11. Only this time, you put a nuke in it. So you have the plane, you save the plane. What about the passengers? What about the passengers? Well, as Jim explained, you only have about 15 minutes of oxygen when those masks fall in the cabin.
Right.
The plane rose to 45,000 feet, rose 10,000 feet. His theory is that at 10,000 feet, the pilot shuts off the cabin pressurization, shuts off the heat, and because it's sub-freezing up there. We're not sub-freezing, close to freezing. Shuts off the heat, shuts off the cabin pressure, so the cabin is now depressurized. The oxygen masks fall. The people will be dead in about 2 minutes. That's so much for the passengers.
Right. Yes.
Okay. Now you land the plane. Now you've successfully hijacked the plane. Only you're the pilots. So either the person that is not part of the hijacking team is going to live or die. But the plane is now in hands of those who can fly it, arm it with a nuclear weapon, paint it in any colors they want, the transponder is shut off, and fly it into anywhere.
Wouldn't it be easier just to go buy a plane? I mean, I don't know.
And if a subnational group bought a jet, do you think they would keep that jet and even take delivery?
Well, I understand what you're saying, and I'm all theories are on the table right now, and they're all good as far as I'm concerned. But you can get a jet in Russia for about $2.50.
Well, that may be, but there are still a whole bunch of export controls and all kinds of controls that are going to identify you. So you buy the plane, you land the plane, you fit it with an atomic bomb, and you fly it someplace. And by the time you're taking it off, you're shot down. So no, they would know. Even the Russians. I mean, they're not so stupid as to be complicit in a terrorist act,
right,
selling a plane to a terrorist to attack a country. Not even Putin is that stupid. So they have to hijack the plane. And that was part of the plan, by the way, that was in Ramzi Yousef's computer when it was taken in the Philippines.
Yep.
That was part of the plan. You hijack planes, you take them and use them as bombs.
Yes. Well, one thing is for sure, the United States and probably a half a dozen other countries in that region, Australia being a strong candidate, India being another one, certainly Pakistan, know exactly where that plane is. And,
right.
It doesn't matter if it crashed. It doesn't matter if it landed. The point is they know and they're not telling.
Right.
This is
why
evil.
India raised a high alert for a plane being used as a missile. They suspected the Pakistanis.
And don't you? I hate to say that we're being lied to about this, but this is one of those blatant situations that is right in front of all of us, and nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to bring up the real truth.
And that's the Overton window. It's the Overton window. Okay, we were attacked by jihadists on 9/11, and the buildings fell down because they were hit by jets, and the jet fuel weakened the struts and the girders, and the buildings just pancaked like that, which they don't, by the way. They fall over on their side, and that's what happened. So all the other stuff surrounding it, the fact that the United States was warned, the fact that Condoleezza Rice personally took a cable from this person, Katz, who was warned by the Taliban that Osama bin Laden was, all that, okay, so we knew that it was coming. And so there's all that. Then all the people that made money from the collapse of that building. Remember, there were explosives in World Trade Tower 1 and 2. There were explosives that, because you always put explosives in these things because you may take these things down someday. So that was there. That the land for the World Trade Center was more valuable than the buildings that stood. But when you take the buildings down, it's so expensive. Active war, buildings come down. Oh, I've insured it. Oh, well, I get paid. So there's all this surrounding that. Not to mention the whole story of exotic weapons. So there's all this story around it. It's never going to go fit through the Overton window. Can't. People are going to laugh at you. And my classic case is on the Rachel Maddow show. She was making a big deal in the Lyndon Johnson Oval Office tapes. LBJ had a taping system in the office. Nixon didn't invent it. And the reason Nixon did invent it was for tax purposes, really, mainly. But Johnson had a tape in the Oval Office. And he's taping conversations. And one of the conversations he's taping is he's entering into a deal with the North Vietnamese to let the Americans get out of Vietnam. We can spend the next 24 hours talking about why we're there, but to get America out of Vietnam. That's the deal. And on the tape, Nixon is complaining over the phone that Richard Nixon has gone behind LBJ's back to the South Vietnamese embassy and has said to the South Vietnamese, don't take President Johnson's deal. You wait till I'm president and you get a better deal. And this is all on tape that Nixon torpedoed. How many people died in the ensuing years because Nixon torpedoed the peace discussions with the North Vietnamese? Mm-hmm. And Rachel Maddow seizes on that as an example of Lyndon Johnson referring to Richard Nixon as treasonous for doing that. Okay? On the same set of tapes, the very same set of tapes released in 1997 by Lady Bird Johnson, Lyndon Johnson's widow, the very same tapes, is a conversation that takes place in the Oval Office just a day after the assassination of JFK, when J. Edgar Hoover walks into the office. And J. Edgar Hoover walks into the office and talks about the two Lee Harvey Oswalds and Lyndon Johnson, the chief executive officer, and from Texas, says to the chief law enforcement officer of the federal government, but we're going to keep this information from Alan Dulles and the investigators. That's conspiracy to obstruct justice, conspiracy after the fact in a capital murder in Texas. That's a hanging offense in Texas.
That's right.
And it's a capital crime. And here, how many times, where have you seen this reported? Did Michael Beschloss write about this in Taking Charge, the official MSNBC historian?
No.
I didn't see it in his book.
No.
If I'm wrong, I stand corrected, but I didn't see it in his book. You didn't see it in the media. It was in Time magazine and Newsweek magazine, a blip on the radar. And I have those upstairs in the attic and under the Hornets, unfortunately. And then it disappeared. So, and it was only referred to obscurely by David Bellin, who was one of the apologists for the Warren Commission, saying that Hoover was really shooting off his mouth about the two Lee Harvey Oswalds. But he didn't mention the fact that LBJ was complicit in conspiring to keep that from the police investigators. He doesn't mention that.
The I've said this once tonight, I'll say it again. The pink elephant in the room with all of this, with MH370, with LBJ, with Nixon, with 9/11 and the Twin Towers, is how I'll say it right direct. Why our country wouldn't do that? Our country wouldn't kill innocent people like that. They, that MH370 wouldn't have been. Well,
the MH370 and the World and 9/11 are two different things. I mean, the MH370 basically is what I think the plane was hijacked. That's why it turned around. The passengers were killed. That's why it ascended to 45,000 feet. Pressure was turned off. The plane was landed somewhere, and it'll turn up again somewhere. Unless we know where it is, and we're letting the story die down, you're not going to find the plane, and then a small special forces operation will take out the hijackers and take out the plane.
Right, and that's what I'm talking about, is the big lie. Whether it is that, whether it was shot down by our aircraft because it was hijacked and we weren't going to allow it to be flown into another situation like 9/11 that the plane was intentionally shot down, or it was accidentally shot down in military exercises that were going in the Indian Ocean, or any knowledge at all of our government or any other government of said downing of plane, whether it was accidental, whether it was hijacked, but 239 lives were certainly lost. And that is my point. And that goes right back to 9/11. How could, we have to be forced to accept the big lie that nobody knew anything about it? And that's the pink elephant in the room. And it's harsh, and nobody wants to talk about it, whether it is the Overton window or not. These are certainly the subjects that need to be talked about, and they are not, and they are completely ignored.
Right, what they are. And in fact, they're worse than ignored. If they were ignored, that's one thing, but they're not ignored. They are looked at as objects of ridicule and scorn for comparison purposes for other stories. Take President Obama, for example, when he's talking about these crazy conspiracies the Republicans are raising, right? And some of them sound pretty crazy. But regardless of how crazy they sound or not, to compare, Obama said, this is like what happened, this is like people claiming of what happened at Roswell. He's the president. He knows darn well what happened at Roswell. He knows the whole story of Roswell. He was briefed on that in the presidential briefing regarding what the CIA knows and what his national security oath is in not revealing it. Presidents take national security oaths. They can be prosecuted for breaking that oath, as Jimmy Carter was threatened with prosecution for talking about revealing UFOs. I mean, the classic answer about UFOs, which really reveals more than you think it does while saying nothing, is Dick Cheney's response when I think it was Grant Cameron who asked Dick Cheney, had he been briefed on UFOs? Again, very important question. Had you been briefed? So it's a two-part question. If you were briefed on UFOs, that means somebody in the government believed that UFOs were worth briefing you about. If they weren't there, they wouldn't brief you about it. So you're briefed about it. And so, one, the person knows about UFOs because he's been briefed or not, and that UFOs are worth being briefed about. So Dick Cheney's answer was, if I were briefed about UFOs, that briefing would be classified. And if it's classified, I can't answer your question.
I got, I'm going to bounce back here. A couple of emails came in, and I just wanted to read these to you really quick. One is from Brad. When I got to Germany in 1988, Armed Forces Radio, AFRN, and television were seriously covering the UFOs over Belgium. For a couple of months, they talked about having to scramble planes from bases near NATO headquarters, as well as Ramstein in Germany. He said, I thought it was pretty wild that AFRN was covering it. Wow. I'm actually surprised. Did you know about that?
Yeah, I did. First of all, the stories of UFO, the triangles over Belgium, made a lot of news in Europe because I think de Brouwer, the head of the Belgian Air Force, a NATO commander, went public when he shouldn't have. He went public about the whole story, and there were photos. We actually have photos of these flying triangles that the F-16s couldn't catch up with.
Are you talking about the general, the Air Force, the head of the head? He's head of defense overall, wasn't he, for Belgium? I think he was. It wasn't just the Air Force.
No, he wasn't just a wing commander. No,
right,
he was the general. Yeah.
Let's see here. I'm getting stuff coming in left and right. By the way, everybody, this is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. We are talking to Bill Birnes, covering everything tonight like we always do. We started off with the Huffington Post article on the Malibu base, and now we've swung around to his campaign in Pennsylvania, to JFK, Johnson. We didn't discuss Marilyn Monroe. I don't know how we left out Maryland, but that's what we're doing tonight. We're covering all the subjects, and I want to get to this email really quick. Is there a history? This is going back to the Malibu base. And I wanted to actually discuss this a little bit further. We didn't get a chance to. But anyway, is there a history of UFO activity in the vicinity of the anomaly, either current or historical, that would indicate its presence? Now, this is the thing, Bill. This is a really good example of people that are interested in this subject that don't know about the past history, but they've certainly now been exposed to, because of the Huffington Post, and that they know that something is going on here, but they don't know about the past history and why it is such an important subject to all of us. But, and you mentioned Reagan. I will say this before you comment. I found a list, and I think it was compiled by Preston Dennett, but I actually found a list of about, I'm going to take a rough guess here, 250 eyewitness reports around Point Dume and Point Magoo between 1965 to about 1995. The list, it might even be longer than that. On and on and on and on. Now, not San Diego. Am I clear on this? Not San Luis Obispo. We are talking between Point Dume and Point Magoo, the lights in and out of the water in that area. So, yes, very significant. And I want to throw that back to you.
Well, I mean, it is very significant. And, of course, we've heard reports, 9/11 calls to the sheriff's station at Lost Hills. And the reports are absolutely, when you hear these 9/11 calls, they are absolutely just precise in their description of what this person is seeing. I'm seeing a UFO. It's flying over here. Oh, my God, it's in the water. That kind of stuff.
And that was from Justin, by the way. I don't know where Justin is writing in from. But, yeah, Justin, you have to understand, this has been going on. You can go and search. It's a very easy search on Google. Google Preston Dennett, Bill Birnes, USO, UFO, Southern California, and all of that research. I'm sure your documentaries, Bill, are probably available on YouTube now, aren't they?
You folks can find it. In fact, the other big thing, of course, is the Kelly Johnson sighting from Pacific Palisades out over the ocean. He sees this strange craft, and this is in the area of Point Magoo and Point Dume. He looks at and he sees this craft. He has a test plane, a Lockheed test plane out over the Pacific. He calls them. They have a visual sighting of this thing. And Kelly Johnson and the crew on this plane are describing its movements to each other, and it's the same object because it's moving the same way. That object became the basis for the SR-71.
Somebody just tweeted right now. He said, if you wanted to buy a new or used 777 and you had cash in hand, you could find it. You could find the plane. I kind of agree with that, actually. It's a weird world out there. If you're a drug smuggler and you need something and you've got cash, you can find somebody to sell it to you.
Right. Just think about the people in India or in Israel dealing with a plane coming in that is posing as their national airline, and you don't know what it is. What do you do?
Yeah. Absolutely. Hey, somebody just tweeted, Bill, I think we should do this. Somebody just tweeted, I would love to sit down at a coffee shop with Jimmy and Bill. That should be the next contest. We should do that.
Yeah, we'll do that.
That would be cool. I would do that. But back to MH370. This is my take. And although I totally
agree.
The
coffee shop would be Joni's in Marina Del Rey on Washington Boulevard.
Joni's rocks. And there's another one, Joni's rocks.
Joni's rocks.
And there's another one. Well, you know what? You can't forget about, I hate to say this, but I love Mel's on Lincoln.
Oh, I love Mel's. Yeah,
Mel's on Lincoln. And then next door to Mel's, there's the Caribbean place that has got the Cuban coffee shots. I can't remember the name of it, but it's like a block away from Mel's, right up the street.
We lived in one of the places we lived was on Nowita, one of the Venice walk streets.
Yep.
And so you could actually, I mean, I would get up in the morning because I would be dealing with New York still. I mean, like so you're on the phone at like 5:36, dealing with New York. You deal with them, make your early morning phone calls, getting them in early. Then you'd walk over to Mel's, just indulge yourself on pancakes, walk back home, and continue with your day in L.A.
I seriously thought, I remember the first time that I went to Mel's, and it's Mel's Drive-In, everybody, and if you've ever seen
Alice.
Yeah, there you go. You've seen it, or American Graffiti.
Right.
There you go. But anyway, Mel's Drive-In. When I first went there in the mid-'80s, I'm going to say it was like 85, 86, and I went in there, I thought that I was literally in the coolest place at the center of the known universe. I mean, seriously, Mel's is just, it's got a place in my heart. And if you ever get to Southern California, so maybe we should. Bill, the next time you come out, we'll do a little contest. I'll do that for anybody that lives in L.A. We'll go and throw a little contest, and we'll go out and we'll talk some paranormal and some UFOs with one of the listeners here.
Right, we can do that. That's the winner.
I would absolutely do it. Okay, now, well, is there anything else you want to cover tonight?
Or the first Bob's Big Boy up in Toluca Lake.
Oh, you know what? That one, that's a winner too. And you know what? It's still there. They've been closing the Bob's down all over the place.
I know. In fact, what's historic to me about that Bob's Big Boy up there is that it was where Ethan Phillips, Neelix on Star Trek,
right,
and I shook hands on doing the Star Trek cookbook, which came out a couple of years later.
Well,
it was in Bob's Big Boy.
That Bob's Big Boy in Toluca Lake, if you go there on a Sunday morning, Saturday morning too, but if you go there on a Sunday morning, 10 o'clock, you will see just about anybody that you wanted to ever meet in your life come in there and have breakfast.
Fabulous.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's, I don't care, George Lopez or, because that neighborhood right there, right across the street, walking distance to every major star's home. But it's like one of the coolest places to go and stargaze.
Right, and it's around the corner from NBC, down the street from Disney Studios.
Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers is right there on Barham.
Yep, it's in the talk about the center of the known universe. That Bob's Big Boy, and I heard that and I drove by it the other day and I didn't see it. I heard the Bob's Big Boy statue was gone.
Wow.
Yeah, you might check that out. So I heard that, and I was out there the other day with my brothers. They were in from out of town, and we drove by there, and I looked, and I didn't see the Bob's Big Boy statue.
I would go out for that reason alone to find out where it is.
I would buy one. But again, you know what? I'm going to open up the phone lines really quick before I let Bill go. I'll let one phone call come in. 323-825-5045. And so here we go. Here are the tweets. Mel's is the bomb. Mel's is the bomb. I live in Vegas. I'll drive to L.A. for coffee. And
true.
Yeah, absolutely.
True.
What's going on this week on your show?
I will drive to Vegas off of that big baked potato place at McCarran, which I couldn't find because when I was out doing that sci-fi show with Joe Rogan, I landed in McCarran, and then they switched my flight to Burbank Airport, and I was all set to enjoy that great steak experience or whatever that's called at McCarran. Right now, let's see, who was our guest? Nancy knows the guest. I don't. Oh, it's James Gilliland.
Oh, okay. Right.
He is our guest on Future Theater. It will be at 7 o'clock Eastern Time, 4 o'clock Pacific Time this Monday. Then the following week, I think the powers that be told me we're switching from 7 to 9 to 8 to 10. And so we are lining up guests for the future. I'm talking to a few people. But
I've always wanted to go up to James's pad and just hang out. A call just came in, so let's just grab this really quick. Last one of the night. Who's calling? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Jimmy, it's Joe Bookman in Park City, Utah.
Joe Bookman. Say hi to Bill.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, Bill. God, I haven't seen you since you interviewed me out in the shoreline of the Great Salt Lake for UFO hunters back when
I remember that very well.
How you doing, Joe?
Great. We had talked back then about you running for Congress. I heard you talking about running for state assemblyman.
I am.
I'm just curious if you have any political plans.
Well, I've got so many issues in Pennsylvania. Well, anywhere. I mean, my big issue is that it really is Medicaid expansion in the state. And they were just being very Scrooge-like about, we don't want to give anybody anything, and so we're not going to do Medicaid expansion. And Pennsylvania is one of the states where you've got this huge population of people who really need that Medicare expansion. And it's like, imagine you're turning it's taxpayer dollars. These are not free dollars. These are not things that kind of float in the air. You pay taxes to the federal government, and it comes back to you in a variety of services. Maybe you don't want the services, but in this particular case, in Medicaid expansion, what you're doing is these are your tax dollars that go out of your paycheck every couple of weeks, every month, every couple of weeks. Now, here's a chance to get some of that tax money back to Pennsylvania, going to Medicaid for people who really need the health care, so they don't become a burden on the state in emergency rooms where they don't pay their bills. And I mean, it's perfectly normal and natural, and it really is a good idea to get some of that tax money back into the state. And the legislature won't vote for it. So that's one of the reasons that I wanted to run. But I said the Democratic Party never got back to me. I suppose that it is somebody said, "Oh, that's that guy with the sunglasses. You don't want that guy running."
Yeah, would you have called for any kind of congressional hearings or whistleblower protection or anything related to the UFO ET issue, or was that going to be the whole focus?
Well, what I would do if I wound up in Congress, what I would do is I would not do what Steve Schiff did and go public with this any one case or another case. You find where you can do the most good, get the most information, make those kinds of connections, and basically see what you can learn. I mean, we learned a lot on UFO hunters. I mean, we learned a lot at Dugway. We had the anecdotal reports of the cattle mutilations at Dugway, why the base expanded. You drive down and see all the biological weapon sensors in the air, why the people are amenable to it. When we approached Dugway, we were on Bureau of Land Management land when the base police came up, demanded the cameras, demanded the video, demanded everything. We showed them our filming permits from the Bureau of Land Management. Mm-hmm. And in the discussions, in these very antagonistic discussions, we were in the right. We were not on the base. We weren't going to give them the cameras. We were not going to point them at the base. We finally got the base public information officer from Dugway, this very nice little person, came out and basically blew the whole top of like all the contractors at Dugway, all the people, all the different military organizations. So you put that together and you have really a great story about what's going on at Dugway, about Area 52. And so, that's the answer to that question.
Have UFO Hunters been released on DVD or?
Oh, yeah, it has been. All 3 seasons have been released.
All 3 seasons are out now?
Yeah, you can get them on the History Channel website.
Okay, cool.
Hey, Joe, I've got another call coming in. Can I grab this real quick and say
thank you?
Absolutely, thanks. Thanks, Joe.
Oh, Joe.
Bye, Bill.
Okay, thanks, Joe. All the best, man. All right. I think who was calling in was, let's see if it lights up one more time. It's Space Boy. Space Boy, let's go. You've got 2 minutes. He's the guy that wrote our intro music for the show, And so everybody's been begging him to call in on the show tonight and speak to you. So, all right, Spaceboy, you've got a couple of more minutes before I hang up with Bill. Yeah, Joe, I got to say this. We had Joe on the show a couple of weeks ago, and actually with Lee Spiegel, as a matter of fact, and it was a great show. But Joe knows a lot about a lot, and it was like I've never had. He's kind of like you, Bill, in a weird way that he has been around the block. Anyway, we've got him right now. Space Boy is on the line with us. How you doing, man?
Hey, what's going on, Revolutionary?
Is that pointed at me? Was that pointed at me or Bill?
Well, both of you. I mean, with Bill. Hey, Bill, how you doing?
Hey, how you
Space
doing?
Boy here.
Baseball.
I just want to say, Bill, it's great to always listen to you talk. An hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, it goes so quick. I love you and UFO hunters. But anytime you're on, especially when you're on the Dark Matter Radio Network, it's always a treat to hear from you.
Oh, great. Thank you.
But yeah, no problem. And Jimmy, I can't say enough about how much I love the show. You know, I'm the Uber fan here, so you know.
You know, the thing is, Bill, Space Boy's been with us since like show number 1. It's going on a year now. I can't believe it. It's passed us by so quickly. But so with that, Space Boy, thank you for calling in. But I know this is your chance. Well, what have you got for Bill?
Well, I don't really have much. I mean, what's been said has been said. You know, I'll just keep listening, and I look forward to hearing you on the Dark Matter Radio. And just shout out to all my tweet buds out there.
There you go. And
thank you, Space Boy.
Hey, man. Hey, thank you for everything that you have done for this show. And I've said it a million times, but it's humbling, and I'm honored. And again, thank you very much. And the music's been great, and what you have done, and the following that you have created for the show is just absolutely incredible, and it's a humbling thing. So thank you, Space Boy, and everybody out there in Tweetland. I'm looking right now. There he is. So hey, thank you, Space
Jimmy.
And
thank you,
and we'll see you tomorrow night. Thank you, Space Boy.
All right, catch y'all later.
Right on. You know, and the one thing though, Bill, is I just think that with this Huffington Post and the mainstream media, I just my view, and I'm going to ask you this question before you go: should I just sit on my hands and let things go where they go? I don't want to look like that I'm doing this for me, because I'm not. So what's the tack that I take? What's the advice that you can give?
My advice would be, if this thing heats up in the media, take the questions and just say, look, nobody is screaming that aliens are coming out of the earth, or that there's a flying saucer base abducting human children and taking them down to the bottom of the sea. That's not happening. All I pointed out was there was this strange-looking anomaly. I call it an anomaly because it looks anomalous to me, on the Pacific coast in a very, very classified, highly sensitive area of naval bases. And I began to wonder, are these tunnels? They look like tunnels. Are they tunnels? Are they tunnels for submarines? Are they tunnels for USOs? I don't know what they are, but they look different from every other aspect of that edge of the continental shelf. And they're 2,000 feet down. And I know we have the equipment that can drill at that depth. We've had it since the 1950s. My question is, are these the openings in the continent for submarine tunnels? I don't know. What would and just go on and on about that. The more technical you get, the more they take you seriously.
So, okay. But I'm not, okay. What are you really trying to say, though?
What I'm really trying to say is that in the instance that the media contacts you and you are held up as a point of ridicule, as the radio guy who talked about UFOs on the air when these were simply natural occurrences, you respond with facts. You don't respond with denials. You respond with questions. And the questions are all scientific. Yeah, I know that's what they said, and that's possibly quite true. But you look at this thing and you really can't deny what's looking you at the face. These look like columns. These look like tunnels. If they're tunnels, what are they there for? I mean, you just follow that line of reasoning. There's no objection to that.
I think the best way to go, and in response to that, is just to say that, you know what, nobody knows. And I'm not taking anything away from the USGS, and I'm certainly not taking anything away from any other specialty guy that's out there. But they haven't been there. They haven't. They don't know. Their opinion of what is there is a best guess, just like my opinion or anybody else's.
You have to start from the premise of saying, what's this article about? You start there, okay? And you look at, okay, fine, so what did Lee Spiegel say? What did Lee Spiegel do? Lee did something which is very traditional. He took an argument, a suggestion, a speculation that seemed out there, that seemed weird, checked it out with people he considered reputable scientists about this area, and then use the story on Fade to Black as a way to point out what UFO true believers say about things without really doing homework and checking. Now, that's not what you did, but that is very typical of how UFO stories are handled in the media when they're being criticized.
Mm-hmm.
We even do it ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Duly noted, and I wrote it all down.
Good.
Thank you, Bill. Uncle Bill. You see,
okay.
I go to you for advice.
Okay.
Hey, a great time, another great show. And again, I can't thank you enough. And I love reaching out to you. And you coming on this show is always fun, and I don't know what to expect. And I think that is what it's all about, and that's great radio.
Okay, folks, join me on Future Theater Monday night, 7 o'clock. Nancy and I, we're there for you.
I love that show.
Okay.
All right, Bill. You have a great night, and I'll talk to you over the weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Give my best to Nancy. Bill Birnes, live on the air. Thank you, Bill. Great show. Space Boy in the house. Wow. And let's see here. Who called in tonight? Dino. Joe Bookman called in tonight. Michael Anderson. Brad Beining. Thank you, guys. We'll get those DVDs out to you real soon. With that, if you will let me, I am going to take a quick break and take a breather, and I will be back right after this. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Bill Birnes, what a show tonight. You got to love that tweet deck. Keep it coming. Email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Follow us on Twitter @jchurchradio. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Don't touch that mouse.
This is William from La Crescenta, and I listen to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Jimmy Church. My name is Alan, and I listen to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
He's always giving it to you straight.
JimmyChurchRadio.com.
On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio, the revolution.
Ah, yeah. You're welcome, Space Boy. You don't have to thank me. Come on, man. Part of the family, brother. I ran out of coffee. That's what Bill Birnes did to me, man. I ran out of Starbucks, and I got to tell you, right now, I have the largest mug known to man in the known universe. It is huge. I ran out. All right. Where's Space Boys DVD? Oh, he wants a DVD. All he's got to do is ask for it. Let's send him. Space Boy seems like. Let's do. Paul Stonehill. There you go. All right, Leslie. See, there you go. Michael Anderson says I'm getting free swag. I love this show. I love everybody that listens. It is truly humbling. Let's see here. Rick Sennett just said, I'm so glad you kids actually behaved so I could listen live for once. Hey, you know what? I just want to say really quick, the tweet deck is like the coolest thing I have ever seen or used. This is good stuff, and this is done by Twitter. Brad Kelly says, I want a DVD. I'm open to what's left. Brad, you know the phone number. Call in right now. Then I'll send you a DVD. You can't break the rules. Everybody else called in. You can't break the rules. So there you go. 323-825-5045. Brad Kelly. You want a DVD? You got to call and say, I want a DVD. And then we will certainly put one in the mail to you. But, man, this tweet deck, I don't have to click. I don't have to do anything. It just scrolls. You can add columns. I'm only using 2, by the way, everybody. The hashtag F2B is not up there. I'm only using DM Radio Net and then my normal notifications for @Church Radio on the other side. But being able to do that and have it scroll in real time, I don't have to click. I don't have to do anything. Absolutely phenomenal. So I'm going to pull down here, and let's see what else I needed to cover tonight. I had oh, man, what was it? I had a couple of other things that I wanted to touch upon. Oh, check this out. I got the feeling, you know what? I got this email about a month ago, and I wanted to read this out to everybody, and it was kind of trippy, but this is what it read, and you guys tell me if you know what this is, and I will watch Twitter as I read this. Oh, somebody's calling in. Okay, here we go. Let's see who it is. All right, last call of the night. You're calling in live. Who is it?
Hey, this is Brad. I want my damn DVD.
Which one do you want, man?
Hey, man, whichever one you got.
All right. Well, let's see. Well, I've got one each of everything left. We can do. Well, it's up to you. Michael Cremo, Don Schmidt, Don Ecker, Paul Stonehill.
Cremo's fine.
You want a Cremo?
Give me a Cremo.
Okay, hold on. Let me write that down so I don't forget. Did you hear that, everybody in the other room? Brad Kelly. Hey, Brad, where are you calling in from?
I'm calling in from Atlanta, Georgia.
Atlanta.
That's right.
So what did you think about, I already know your answer basically, but for everybody out there that hasn't been following you on Twitter all evening, what do you think about the exposure going into mainstream media on this whole thing with Malibu? Right path, wrong path, just let it go?
I just let it go. I mean, it's going down a path. That's the main thing.
Yeah, you're right about that. Okay, so you want Cremo. You can't control. I just got an email earlier, about 10 minutes ago, saying that they were monitoring what's going on the web with this story, and it's already been picked up by countless websites. Also, a little bit of plagiarism too, cut and paste jobs and stuff like that. But it has relaunched onto the web, and I'm going to get numbers on it in the morning. But what's funny is you can't control it. I talked to an attorney a couple of weeks ago about this, and my publicist, and we were talking about this together. And they said, you know what? Just let it go. If somebody's you can't control it. So the best thing to do is just to appreciate the fact that it's recognized and just let the story go. Just let it take a life of its own and let it run. And where it stops is where it stops. I thought that was kind of weird advice, but you can't really control the internet. You just
can't control the news, can't control the internet. It's kind of like our government gets caught up in that kind of stuff sometimes, just like that Belgium thing I texted you about.
Yeah, right. That's exactly right. Oh, one more call. You know what? I don't know who's calling in, but I got to wrap the show. So there you go. Hey, Brad, thanks a lot, man. And tomorrow night, Craig Capobasso will be in, and it's going to be a really good show tomorrow night. So looking forward to seeing you tweet and possibly call in tomorrow night. Thanks, Brad.
Hey, can't wait to see it.
Hey, send Rita your address.
Will do, Jimmy. Thanks.
You got her email.
You bet.
All right. Thanks, Brad. All right. That's it. That wraps another show here on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Let's go ahead and roll that music. All right. Coming up next, it is Night Watch with Todd Sheets, followed by Spooky South Coast with Tim Weisberg and his very famous, I might add, unironed shirt. And one day, just keep listening, roll in, and then send Tim an email about that shirt and tell him I sent you. All right? Special thanks to Keith Rowland and Art Bell. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Kamarian. The show is